Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Final Fantasy VII Rebirth spoiler mode with special guest Max Dude. How's it doing, Maximilian Dude? How's it doing?
Hi.
How's it
Hi.
going? I'm so
We're
hyped.
back. we have I guess like concluded our timelines. We're all like meeting up here and we've all collided once again. It's good to see you all.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Little foreshadowing right there.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh, okay. Sure. Okay. We're going to play it like that.
Sure.
All right. I know what's in store. I know the future. Maybe like some other characters possibly in this game. But this is our spoiler mode. I'm joined by Michael Huber as well. How's it going, Huber?
Oh, doing really well. Excited.
Dude, I just want to say, when I was playing this for review in advance, I told Huber already, I was so tempted. Multiple times I'd like hold my hand away from hitting enter on the keyboard to send him messages on Slack. I'm like, no, he hasn't played it yet. I can't send him that. Because I was like, dude, this part. And he's like, oh no, he hasn't experienced it yet. I'm like, shit. I was like, oh no.
Yeah, it was brutal for me because I was late too, and I sort of went completionist run on my first playthrough.
Yeah, same.
So I was just like, oh my god, everybody knows about this ending but me, and people have been waiting like weeks for me to finish it. So I'm glad that we're finally here. I've sat on some thoughts for a couple of days now, and I'm feeling pretty good about it.
Excellent. And so we're about ready to begin here, everyone. So this is our usual warning. If you have this is a broader warning than usual. If you've not anything with the words Final Fantasy VII in it is fair games to talk about in this spoiler mode. OG Final Fantasy VII, Remake, Rebirth, any of the compilation of Final Fantasy stuff, Advent Children, Dirge of Cerberus, the Crisis Core, Before Crisis, all that stuff could come up here. And I'm just going to give you a broader warning, like just general Final Fantasy warnings, because some of this, the rabbit hole might go a little bit deep here with some of the stuff that might be coming up. So we're just giving you an umbrella warning here. We've all beaten the game. We're ready to go. Our spoiler mode begins right now. Final warning. Let's go.
Spoiler mode, final warning, spoiler mode, activated.
All right, before we kick off here.
It has begun.
It has begun. Love that movie.
Hell yeah.
Before we kick this off, though, real quick, Max, we got to do this. For those people who just might not be familiar with you, there are some people out there. Tell us a little bit about yourself before we dive into this.
Yeah, so thank you so much for bringing me on your podcast once again to talk about Final Fantasy VII. My name is Maximilian, dude. I'm a massive Fortnite streamer. I love Call of Duty. Just to break, I love Roblox and Minecraft. I'm just kidding. I do a lot of fighting game stuff. Conveniently, also a big Final Fantasy VII fan, just in general. I've been very lucky to be put into a situation where like a lot of people, when they hear Final Fantasy VII, like think of my name and they go to my streams and my videos, which I do appreciate. So I'm just doing my best, trying to get as many videos out as possible and, thoughts and information. So it's been a wild 4 years, even since the first time we did this podcast, and, had a confluence of thoughts that between all of us, because there was a lot to think about with that game. So I got a big shout out to Easy Allies. Like I never even did an own personal take on the crazy theories at the end of FF7. It was kind of you guys. We did that live. So, that video is pretty great.
I'm glad you had an outlet for that. And honestly, where we're going with this type of stuff, I got to say, this has made me way more intrigued in like narrative and storylines and like timelines. And I haven't felt this in a long time because just a little background for me real quick, like Zelda timeline stuff. This is starting to scratch that itch where I've generally got bored with that in the Zelda universe. I'm like, I'm done with that. It's like, it's not as interesting. Square Enix has found a way to like work up that mystique, that enigma again about getting all the fan base riled up about theories. Like they study that along with like multiverses. It's like the hottest thing in the past like 5 years. So they're just combining these two powerful forces, and it's just like undeniable how it's just like its gravity has just caught everyone in it.
For sure. And I feel like they were aware of that a little bit with part one, where part one had sprinkling. They peppered some stuff here and there, and they're like, we wonder if people are going to catch on with this, or they're just going to play it straight, because you could definitely play it straight with that one. And it was like, okay, so there's some big braining that could happen here, and there's some conversations that could take place, and once you get somebody to see it, there's like a click. It's like, oh, you're kind of right. This is all throughout the game. This game's sort of unapologetic about it, and they just lay out the plate. So we get to talk about that today. We get to talk about all the stuff that they put on the table, and then again, the awareness of that, where now they're like, oh, now we know people are doing this, so we're going to go even more than ever before. It's like, oh God, now there's almost too much, brother. Like, what is happening?
Yeah. And I know a lot of you are here because you want to hear a lot of our crazy theories and Max's like awesome theories that go many levels deep. But I got to start at the beginning and ask the most basic of questions. You just finished this a little over a day ago, Max. It's still pretty fresh with you.
Sure.
Like, what are your overall impressions of just the game? Like all the different elements about it. I mean, I watched a lot of your streams. You seem to enjoy it, but yeah, how are you feeling about it now?
Yeah. And I feel like it's kind of a tough one because it's been my life for the past like month. It's done so much to consume so much of my time and thought space in the past month that it's like, okay, I got to put this into a compendium of some way. And I don't want to like really hype everybody up in a way or disappoint people with an overall thoughts because I haven't done a final review. So I don't want to set all these crazy expectations, but I think it's one of the greatest video games ever made. So sorry, like if you're like, oh, it was this good or that good. No, I think it's actually legit one of the best video games I have ever played. And that comes from a bias of Final Fantasy VII for sure, because the game is clearly catering towards FF7 fans. And that's fairly obvious. But even without that being the context that it is, it's just, this is Squaresoft 90s level game making. It's aggressive. It is all over the place. It is ambitious. It's risky, like a lot of their games felt like they used to be. So it very much feels like, especially from like a Japanese side of the gaming industry, feels like we're back in the SNES or PS1 time with this game. And from the likes of which a lot of these games that come out from, the big devs like the Square Enix, the Capcom, the Bandai Namcos, this one feels so unsafe. It feels like they're just throwing stuff at the wall, and we want to throw all of it. We're not. There's no limitations.
It's actually two of the best games ever made because it has Queen's blood.
There we go.
Yeah, dude, dog.
Can't stop humor from this.
Like, let me tell you, there gets to be a point where it's like I love the towns, and we'll talk about all these individual elements. I love just getting to towns and just talking to people and the world building. So where are these Queen's blood bitches? It's like showing up at an arcade where these fools think they're hot. I'm gonna show them my destruct deck.
Yeah, who's ready to throw down cards?
I gotta say, Max, I watched you fight. We'll just say Regina, aka the real person behind the villainy of Queen's Blood. And I saw how long it took you to complete that, and I know I took much longer to do that. Huber, I don't know how long it took you to tackle that if you did it.
Oh, we went spoilers. Final battle.
Yeah, the one with the card that's annoying, and then you have the Emerald Witch card that like counters it. So, that one took me. I think it took you like maybe 30 minutes of tries, Max, and I was like, what the fuck?
That one was so hard because I had a deck ready to go, but then I had to like switch it out.
Yeah, that one. Yeah. So there was that was not the hardest Queen's Blood challenge. I'm going to tell you what the hardest Queen's Blood thing for me was in the game. I first tried the final battle. I don't know how. I just got mad lucky and I stuck like Emerald. I first or second tried it. I stuck the Emerald in there and it saved me. And I was like, oh wow, it just sort of worked out. And then I think she actually killed herself with a bad play. And I was like, how did I just win? Like the AI actually screwed itself over. I was like, what? Okay, I guess I just like first or second tried this. There was a puzzle challenge for Queen's Blood that took me 2 hours.
Those ones were so hard.
Dude, the one that's in Costa del Sol after they all unlock. It's the Gi Natak challenge.
Yes.
Oh, those were so hard.
It destroyed me, dude. I was there for so long. I felt I did every single option, and this thing has like, you can solve this like 50 ways. One way works. And I'm like, oh my God, this shit took me forever. And then I eventually got it, and I was just like, it's done. Yeah, like it's over. So yeah, that was for sure the hardest thing in the entire game for me in terms of Queen's Blood stuff.
Yeah, I think I busted out like a Google Doc to take notes for some of those because so funny thing is I I was being stubborn and trying to win almost all of these with like a starter deck, essentially, without really using.
Man.
And so I remember messaging Huber and say like, dude, I'm spending like 2 hours on some of these Queen's Blood like puzzle challenge things, and then like we talked about it like on our impressions, and at that point I realized, I gotta edit my deck, man. Like I got to put, I gotta get into like the destruction cards that trigger the buffs. Like you gotta start doing that stuff.
So I was gonna ask Huber, because there's like a point in the game where you're like 2/3 done through Rebirth, and you start getting a lot of cards that start getting secondary buffs. Queen's Blood gets like another level on top of it, so it starts expanding. There was like a part of the game where I naturally was like, these destruct cards seemed really good. Like blowing up your own cards and giving yourself buffs seemed really good. So I just started focusing on that like crazy. And it was like, like right at the same time, the game started doing the same thing. All of the other people did. Did you come across that, like that realization, making your own like your own deck at the same time?
Yeah, because those came so late. And then I only had a couple, and I was like, I only have like a few of these. I'm going to try these out. And then I started getting more for sure. That was awesome. And then like all the cards that were like, if you win this lane, you get more points. I loved those.
Yeah. All the conditional stuff starts popping up where it's like, if you don't have a card that has like a condition in some way, you're doing it wrong. But there's one card that never left any of my decks as soon as I got it from the beginning of the game. I think it's the best card in the game. It's Titan.
100% Titan.
So you guys like Titan?
Best card in the game. And the reason is he's like a tier 3. He's like a 3-pawn card that only costs 2. 100%. And the buffs he gives you is so good. So and he doesn't even do like, I blow this up and I nuke half the board. No, he's just like a super solid play at the mid or the start, and you always play him.
Titan was very strong. I banked a lot of my matches on the jockey card. What's his name again?
Choco Jockey.
Dude.
Because of the plus 10 if you won that lane. I was like,
for sure.
I just got to neutralize your other lanes and then win this one lane. And I like, I like bailed me out so many times. And then
and I appreciate there was at one point where I'm like, I'm not a TCG guy that much. I played like Teppen and that was it, right? So there was a part of the game that like taught me to think differently about this. And there was a puzzle that I was having trouble solving. Because in my head, I'm always thinking about winning 2 or all lanes. And eventually it's like, no, you can just invest crazy hard into one lane because it's just the total that you have to worry about. And I was like, oh God, I didn't even think of that. I'm like always thinking about splitting my difference between like the top 2 or the bottom 2 or in between. And it's like, oh, no, here, this is going to teach you invest hard into one lane. And that's actually the tough part about the talk fight is that they teach you to invest and then split that investment. And I'm like, what the hell, dude? Now it's getting even crazier.
So sick.
Now, we talking about like mini games and like side activities. I do know, Huber, when we talked in our impressions, does it stand in your final thoughts, your impression that there was maybe a little bit some of the activities became too repetitive, like the Ubisoft like activities, like the towers, stuff like that? Do you still feel like that at the end? And then also, when you get a chance, Max, like how did you feel about some of those, or did you feel maybe they could cut back on some of those or change some of those going forward?
Yeah, Huber, what did you feel?
I will hopefully not hear much Chadley slander today. Because I'm a fan, but I will say in that regard, there's just a few too many points when you add them all up. I think if they cut down like 5% of those, it would have just made all the other mini games and all the other like story beats just flow a little better, I think. Yeah. Because there was a point when I was like trying to keep up with all that stuff, but then I just was, spent like 15, 20 plus hours straight grinding out, the Chadley points and the mini games and everything. So if they just like took a little bit away, I think it would have been perfect. But just the sheer amount of games you could play and how good each of them were, and the fact that you could have like the expert challenges. So, like Fort Condor and going down back and doing the hard versions of that, like all that stuff was so amazing. Yeah.
And I do agree with you, like on the Chadley part where it feels like, Chadley gets the most spoken dialogue in this entire game. I do at one point I remember feeling like, what they're setting up with the story is so interesting, and it was at Cosmo Canyon, and right as Cosmo Canyon is like over, they set up this, and the Gee stuff happens. We'll talk about all this later, but when they set that up and they set the precedence of like, well, we gotta go, get on the plane, let's go check this out, this is where we gotta go, I was like, damn, I really want to go. Like that that seems like a great idea right now, because now it's like the premise of going, and the game just goes like, so here's also 7 hours of gameplay down there in Cosmo Canyon. Like, I can't not do it though. So ultimately, I don't think it goes as a detriment against the game in any way at all, because like, I think it's like 90% the mini games in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, they are optional. They aggressively go out of their way to be like, hey, you don't have to do this.
Totally.
Like, a lot of people that are crazy completionists are like a little upset with the game because the completionist rating on this game is very hard. Like, getting the final stuff in the game and the platinum trophy and stuff is actually ridiculously hard. So, and I don't think that should be held against the game in any way, because you don't have to do that stuff, man. It's just extra content. And having a game that gives you like quite literally 100 to 150 hours of like just raw first time through gameplay is insane for it to be that high quality for that long.
Yeah. I know that argument of like, oh, you don't have to do it, but then I think of stuff like, the side quests and like the proto relics and stuff.
Sure.
And it's like, you don't have to do it, but like if you don't, you're missing out on so much stuff.
So and that's
like finding that balance for my like OCD completionist brain.
For sure.
But then also like, pacing it out. I gotta do a better job of like pacing it out too. I don't know.
And I do agree with what you say, because that's the way I felt. There was moments where it's like, I want to go in the story direction really bad, but I can't. And the reason I can't is because the side content is good. It's really good. The quality of like the vast majority of it is so good that now I don't want to miss any of it. So they've done a problem. The game has a problem. It's too good most of the time. There's too much good stuff where it deviates from like the main plot. So I recently had a playthrough of Remake again, where I did something I'd never done before. I blitzkrieged the game. I went just main plot, and I ignored all of the extra stuff. And guess what? I loved it. I thought it was
liberating.
I actually thought it was way better not having to deal with all the extra side stuff, because the side stuff brings the game down. It's the opposite in this game, brother. It's like the other side stuff like elevates the game in several ways, and there's really great story stuff there. So it's like, I don't want to skip that. So anyway, I need to do a new playthrough of Rebirth where I skip all the side stuff now and just like gun it and feel how does that feel? How is the pacing of the game now that I'm not just meandering around the grasslands for 10 hours?
I did that I think maybe 2 weeks ago now, because I wasn't sure how long it was gonna take like, you and other people to finish. I'm like, dude, I finished this game like middle of like second week of February or something, and I was like, crap, I'm gonna need to play this again to keep the story fresh. And I thought it was like, still very enjoyable, and I liked it. And it was actually kind of a relief not to have to go through some of those side activities again, even though like a lot of them have great stories. I've seen some copium theories about the amount of content, the side content, that when we get part 3, some of that is like meant to be in part 3 as well. So if people have skipped over it, like what they're going to do in like the existing zones, like, they're going to be, so it's like, those are all the mini games. They're there already. You did them. You don't have to go back and do them. I was like, I don't know if they're going to do that, but
yeah, the part 3 discussion we're going to have later is going to be pretty interesting, because again, this game is like clearly a sequel, like a mad sequel. This shares of some similarities to part 1, but it truly feels like this is a vastly different game. And I'm really curious if part 3 is going to be more like a Breath of the Wild to Tears of the Kingdom, where there's a lot of familiarity. Right? There's a lot of like familiarity with a twist, sort of situation. Or God of War Ragnarok, where it's like, these places are familiar. Now there's just new twists on them, right? So we'll talk about that later.
Familiarity with a twist. I like that.
Just a few more questions about like the basic game stuff. I have a friend named Tony who we were talking about some of this stuff, and he brought up a complaint about how the summon fights are locked behind the Chadley virtual environments.
Sure.
And that we have those field intels with the fiends that culminate with like a big like monster fight. They were kind of lamenting how they couldn't kind of like combine those two concepts and have like the final of those be a big summon fight out in the environments. That they felt it was a bit of a cop out.
I agree that too much of the big culmination fights, like the summon fights and certain other things, take place in VR. And
Sure.
there's one complaint that our friend Matt had, that so much of that VR background is like a training stage from a fighting game. You just see it so much. And then, yeah, I thought it would have been cool if you could have had like a Grasslands VR version, or a Corel VR version, or a Gongaga VR version, where it's just like clearly VR, but you can just change the environment a little bit just to give you like a taste of like, this could look a little different, right? You know, because you just see that. I recently had a moment where it's like, all right, I got like 35 Chadley VR fights I have to do. And I was just in the thick of it for like 2.5 hours going through them, you know?
I will say, at least when you summon during a fight on the field, it is still epic as hell.
Yes. And there was one thing I really appreciated about the final Proto Relic fights, and it's that it took place in unique environments. It was like at nighttime and stuff. And I was like, whoa, we don't get a lot of stuff at night in this game. This is really cool.
That was an epic payoff.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things I hope is that they could we can get a little bit now too as well. It kind of ties into like the flashiness of some of the like the bigger battles, because the VR environment, as like nice as it is in the beginning, it gets played out. And one thing, aside from like maybe like one or two fights and the boss fights in this game, specifically like the final Genova fight and final Sephiroth Reborn fight, the spectacle was not always quite there for boss fights for me, though it was still like a great combat system. And I just comparing it to last year's Final Fantasy 16, like the Titan and Bahamut fights, it's like I would like to see something, especially with how crazy we're going in these games and how much crazier they have to go for part 3. I feel like they need to like kind of one up that a little bit. I mean, a 12 phase boss was pretty extravagant, but that felt more like old school RPG style than like this is like insanely spectacle. I mean, it was pretty good.
I don't know if we're going to get that, because that's essentially 16's identity, right? Like 16, the whole thing of 16 that is the most appealing part about it is the Asura's Wrath moments. And it isn't even as much like the human versus human interaction stuff. Like that stuff's really cool. The Asura's Wrath stuff is the dopest stuff in the game. It's like, I love this, man. But it's so over the top and insane because it reaches a scale of like epicness that is way bigger than dude versus dude, you know? However, part 3 is very large scale. There's very big creatures in part 3. I think, I mean, just we're already getting into it, but I think they're going to have a completely different battle dynamic for weapons. I think they're going to do a thing that is like quite involved, like whole party involvement. When you fight weapons, that'll be different from normal party engagements throughout the world. I think they have to one up something where it's like, hey, everybody's involved, and now you have to like figure that out.
Because they were like, even them, like even in this one, when like your reserves are just kind of in the back, sometimes I would see like, you know, a Aerith little spell like come into the fight. So they're like one step away from that, Max. It's actually a really cool
pretty much.
Let me just ask you that now. I know that this would be part 3 discussion, but I think we're organically there. I mean, you had a little bit of that. You do see your party members who aren't active, your active 3 around you in some fights doing like auto attacks. There is like the ability to synergy call one of them in
backline command.
The backline command. Do you see them doing more of an active swap system in part 3, especially the addition of Sid and Vincent as playable characters? Like it's going to get a little like big for the party. I mean, we saw how they handled it, that they kind of forced you to have certain comps at certain points according to story beats. But do you expect them to maybe try and push that a little bit further and be like, I can tag someone in, or like spend an ATB bar to tag someone else in, or something like that?
That was my original thought process, where like this would eventually go when you have full party access. And we thought you might even get that in Rebirth back in the day. But to have an FF10 style, you know, everyone's there, but 3 characters are active at one time. To be real, like we don't want to be playing and hot swapping between 7 to 9 characters or some shit. That is honestly too much. And the party dynamic of Final Fantasy VII is always 3 active characters on screen. It's done that in the old in the OG game to this game, so I don't think we're going to get like a big thing. You know, constantly I have to worry about 7 characters. But I do think they have to expand party dynamics, and they have to do a thing that allows us to properly utilize other team members and synergy abilities and synergy skills, especially. Synergy abilities are big and flashy and cool. I get it. But I think this game truly shines in like no ATB cost synergy skills that really change the flow of combat and what you can do with characters. So there's so much room to expand. There's so much. And I do like the idea of having access to other parts of the party where it's like, hey, there's this flying asshole. I can't do anything about him. I don't have Barrett or anything, even though Cloud can clearly get up there now and I can throw Tifa. But at the same point, it's like, it would be nice if we can just, whoop, Vincent, get in here. Like, Sid, jump on that dude.
Well, that was like, that's how I use synergy skills. I do see some people in our Twitch chat saying like they didn't really use synergy skills, and that's fair. I think you don't really need to use them. But for like Tifa, one of her bread and butter synergies was like a launcher. It like you just like, flipped her up into the air. I'm like, so it's like, oh, Tifa can't get to aerial enemies. Like, yeah, she can. Just hold R1, hit this, and launch her up. So it's like, I feel like I expect them to allow you to mix and match the synergy skills and synergy actions in part 3 so that you can maybe like pick up to 2 per character, but they're not like the active party members. It could be, for sure. I want to use this one for this slot.
Oh, you want assists. You want literally Marvel assists.
Basically that. Yep.
Yeah, that's actually not a terrible idea. That's actually kind of cool because it does feel like there's room to expand these. Like some characters only get certain synergy skills with others. There's room for expansion here where you can assign which ones you want. Now it's like sort of just like in there, like you get the bodyguard one. I think you could somewhat assign them. I didn't do it for the entire party. But, you know, the effective use of them are great. They literally have the ability from FF16, which is called Counterfire, which reflects and allows you to counterattack enemy projectiles, which is one of my favorite things to do in 16, which is like big Phoenix swing and go back in and whoop their ass. You get it. It gives you a ton of ATB after. Cloud reflecting projectiles from Barrett's gun or like Red 13. You can do it in the air. You just get to build ATB whenever you want. I think a lot of people that get hung up on the ATB-ness of this game, where it's just like, I just have to whack at an enemy till I see the bar show up. I'm like, no, you don't, dude. Like all these synergy skills, the majority of them build mad ATB. If you do the power cleave with Tifa, with Cloud, or like the magic cleave with Aerith, or I think it's Yuffie, it builds like an entire ATB bar on Cloud and the other character. So it's like, oh geez, dude, these are really good. It's just that there's so much other stuff in the game that you focus on all the other flashy magics and weapon skills and everything like that.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, we could talk about like builds and stuff. Like I'm doing the brutal legendary challenges with Chadley in hard mode, like having to look up like good builds. And like, that's one of the bread and butters is like equipping materials and skills that keep your ATB bar just constantly charged and like everything working. And like, I was like, dude, these are amazing builds. Like if you use these in the normal game, you're going to like breeze through. So I think that's part of the process is like figuring out some of that stuff and enjoying it and not being too overpowered at the get-go. So that's something I do hope they maybe in next part make it easier to save materia loadouts because doing these challenges, some of them like recommend specific builds and it's like I would really like to. And then as you get more characters, you only have so many you only have like materials. One piece of a certain materia. It's like I don't want to keep switching it. Can I just like stuff like that.
It's probably like and again, it's weird that they carry over something from the OG FF7 that I don't like, which is when you have to split your party up and you have to flip between parties throughout some parts of that game. And I'm like, damn it, dude, I have to do all this materia horse shit. There needs to be an easy way where it's just and what's also crazy to me, a legit criticism of Rebirth. There's the big materia screen, right, where you can beep 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 and like assign everything. That's cool. That also exists in OG Final Fantasy VII. That's cool. However, the functionality in OG FF7 is 10 times better. You can select a whole character and be like, boop, I'm going to put whole character's materia on this whole other character. And it works. It just works. Yeah. That doesn't exist in this game for some reason. I'm like, that needs to exist. Like, you should just be able to be like, hey, this character's gone, and I have all the slottage appropriately. I just need to take all their shit, just stick it on that other person, you know?
Yeah, it's weird. Like when you change like your weapon or your armor, it will like ask you, do you want to like as best as possible retain your same materia in those slots, but like it doesn't go the other way. It's like I want to transfer those to another character. We don't have an easy way. It's like you got to pick each materia one by one. You can like do the swap, but man, it just takes so long, and it's like so easy to like maybe mess up one. It's like, oh, come on, like just like make this like a little bit easier. And I hope they do that in part 3.
Yeah.
Another thing about character specific stuff, I got to ask both of you, is we got character specific like environmental actions, like Barrett being able to shoot objects, knock down ladders. We had like the grappling hook. We had all like Red 13 walking up walls, but they were only kind of locked to certain chapters or sections of the game. Do you want those to be more readily integrated into like part 3? And then how did you feel about them just in general? And do you want to see like more of them?
Go ahead, Huber.
For party members?
Yeah, like when they're in the
party members'
environment.
unique abilities in dungeons and stuff.
Yeah. I thought it was really cool how you bounced around so many characters and were controlling specifically each, almost like every party member, and they all had their own little feeling and vibe, because it just made it feel like more of the party story rather than just Cloud's. Like Cloud is clearly the main character, but being able to bounce around and have so many of these characters be the focus, I think not only helped shake up the gameplay a little bit and the exploration, but narratively as well. It just helped me get in the minds of this whole cast.
And yeah, they were obviously like hyping it up ahead of time, showing all these unique character actions. And I thought we were going full Guardians of the Galaxy. And I really like that about Guardians of the Galaxy, where it's like, hey, you have a party and they all have unique abilities. How are you going to combine those unique abilities to get the hell up there? And I thought that was cool. I'm like, dude, when I was playing that game, I'm like, this would be awesome for the next Final Fantasy VII game. And they sort of do it, but it's a bit controlled, where each character gets their own dungeon. For the most part, you get like the Barrett dungeon, you get the Aerith dungeon at the end of the game, you get the Kate Sith dungeon, right, which sucks. So you still get to see those things, but do you get to like utilize them in some way? You don't. However, what they do allow is that each dungeon doesn't feel like the same rinse and repeat. We're just going through another hallway sort of situation, which is kind of what a lot of FF7, like dungeons can feel like. Now there's a lot of branching paths and stuff, and they give you a ton of options. You can now grappling hook with Yuffie and do all this stuff. So I think it 100% helped. It definitely alleviated some of like the feelings that you kind of had in Remake, where it's like you weren't really excited about like, oh, we get to go into the sewers, or oh, we get to start going through this place. Some of that was met with some like reserve, where it's like, okay, let's just get to the cool fights. Now I didn't feel that way. Now I was like, yeah, the mithril mines were dope. Yeah, cool. Dude, going through Corel and grappling around with Yuffie was cool. Like,
it was so fun.
Was it the most amazing level design ever? It wasn't, but I wasn't thinking that there's parts of this that are actively bad, that are like PS2 level error, like sort of like gameplay. But then you get to the combat, which is very next gen. In this game, that didn't have that issue, where that was a fix. That seemed to be a problem from part 1. We need to solve that. We need to make our interactions and environments a little bit more dynamic and interesting. I think they did that 100%.
Yeah,
I totally failed that.
Room to improve.
You failed what?
Throwing the boxes.
Oh, on the elevator, like the timed one. First time.
Like in my quest is like, you failed. You did not. I
raged at that, but now I'm a pro. Now it's like I do it in like half the time they even require. And it's like, okay.
I was going through that section, and I was like reading what I have to do to throw a box, and I was like still trying to do it with my hands. I'm like, Square Enix, we did not need to reinvent aiming.
Yes.
Like, why are we reinventing aiming in a video game? We do not need to do this. And throwing a box. So I aggressively didn't like that part of it. The part that people don't like about that part is fighting with Kate Sith, because nobody fights with him.
Oh.
But Kate Sith is so hard to like wrap your head around in first impression. I spent a lot of time with him. Yeah, I spent a lot of time with him ahead of that. So I really appreciated that challenge. I thought it was actually cool.
If you can unlock some of Kate Sith's skills, they're like really good. Man. Like the magic one, which brings like a summon into the fight, just like that. I think that was the thing. If you don't have some of those skills unlocked from your weapon skills, it's going to be a lot more challenging. Plus, the enemies were really good. I mean, they're frustrating, but they were kind of like puzzle enemies. Like
they're puzzles.
The scale one, it's like you use too many physical attacks. Like, it's immune to physical. So it's not exactly rocket science, but at the same time, if you're not prepared, you're kind of like screwed a little bit. You're trying to wait it out. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I just love the gambling element, dude. You start throwing dice and slot machines in there.
Exactly.
Yeah,
You just like I'm gonna put this in God's hands, and you just start like throw the dice, dude. That's the cool part you learn eventually about Cait Sith, because he has so many like hidden mechanics and stuff that they don't explain to you. Every character does this, by the way. They don't tell you that Cloud has an air dash. You have to like figure that out as you're playing the game and stuff. Cait Sith is the only character in the game with like a Dark Souls iframe roll. And it isn't when he's in his cat form, and it isn't with the dodge button. When you're on top of the Moogle and you just press left or right, he does like a twirly spin. It is fully invincible.
Oh,
Dude,
I'm like, wait a minute. Like, and then as soon as I realized that, it was just him tap dancing around enemies. I'm like, oh my God, he's godlike. No other characters in the game have that shit.
pretty awesome. I saw chat pointing out the little victory songs that each one like kind of hums when they win Cait Sith's when he does it. I really like that. Yeah, I like how they like force you into doing it. And I was kind of expecting that. I mean, if you played RPGs long enough, you know that big ensemble casts are always going to get a point where they need to have like a one-on-one or small group focus. And I do really appreciate that. I will say there are a few times where I do wish maybe some of the tutorial stuff was like a little bit worded a little bit better. I'm actually still shocked they haven't patched the game over retry screen on some of the boss fights, because there's during the Sephiroth Reborn on hard mode, I'm just gonna say I lost like on every phase multiple times on hard mode, and so it does checkpoint you. But the description of there's like 4 different retry options, and I'm like, I kept picking the wrong one, and I was streaming it, and chat's like, maybe try the top one, because I was going back to the beginning. I'm like,
it's the top one.
It's the top one, and I'm like, why would you word it this way? I'm
dude,
like,
I saw the greatest meme, which is like a dude sitting in the chair for Who Wants to Be a Millionaire with Regis there, and the options were all of it. Would you like to retry? And the 4 options were the 4 things, and the guy's like, like, oh my God.
Oh man.
So I got lucky. I just chose the top one. I'm like, that sounds good. I heard about this. I took it, and it was like, oh, it puts you back right before the fight. I'm like, cool. We're cool. I don't go back to 6 chapters ago or some shit.
It was a little frustrating. I had that, and then I picked I picked the real wrong one, because I was mashing, and I was kind of frustrated during the Coliseum, the Gold Saucer Coliseum. I got to Rufus. Rufus on the hard mode is a fucking nightmare, and I hit the wrong one. It sent me all the way back to the very beginning of like the ads phases. I was like, oh no, because like the Turks fight before that was also pretty hard. I was like, oh my God. I was so angry. But yeah, they could definitely improve that. But back to your real quick, like some of the more complex stuff with the character interactions. I think that maybe they were trying to harken back to like those weird, goofy, like obtruse, like control schemes you had for different like mini game or secret stuff that they were purposely, weird and strange like that, because it added to their mystique. And maybe nowadays we're just so spoiled by like good controls explanations, it just didn't land as well as it maybe could have.
And there's so many of them. To me, it really reminds me of the 90s, right? It really reminds me of just like classic arcade games. The majority of them, outside of like one, there's only one that I have a complaint about that isn't arcade-like and is also like weirdly convoluted. There's a ton of mini games in this game. I think 98% of them are super fun, because you first do it and then you're like, oh, I get it. And then you do it again and you like slam it. Which is the best thing, which always feels good. Like, oh, I did only okay, and then you slam it, and it's like, all right, let's go. The only ones that I have criticism of are like the 3D brawler, which is brutal, and then obviously Gears and Gambits. And Gears and Gambits is like, okay, so we're going one level deeper, another level deeper, another level deeper. What the hell's going on with this thing? To me, it came across as like an even worse version of an already very difficult minigame, which is in this one, Fort Condor.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there was a lot of Fort Condor overlap with that one, so it didn't hit me as hard as I wanted it to. I still really liked it. I saw a lot of criticism for that one. I thought it was fun, but it definitely wasn't one where I was like fiending for a standalone game like Queen's Gambit or Fort Condor. And I miss the OG Fort Condor where you could like, cycle in all your units and stuff. This had the pre-made builds, which was kind of a bummer.
Yeah.
But there were so many games in it, I didn't hold it against it. You don't hold it
against it. And the majority of them are completely optional. I don't have to do this gears and gambit. I don't have to do the Fort Condor. You do not have to do this. You can't really hold it against the game. The criticism of Fort Condor being so hard, I figured out what makes it so hard, because Fort Condor, I think, is legit better in the Yuffie DLC. I actually like it a lot more.
It's my favorite.
It's so good there. And they make it really freaking hard in this game for some reason, but there's a good reason. There was a cheat that you could do in Fort Condor Yuffie DLC, and it's the cat mob. You have the cat, and you could send it, and the whole gimmick of the cat is that it avoids all interactions and rushes a boss.
That's right. I remember.
You now do not have that. It takes it away from you in this one, at least from the ones that I played. Instead, it gives it to the AI. The AI has a cat mob that rushes your base and pushes your line back. You're like, dude, this is so cheap. But this is what I did to you in the previous game.
It felt like it kind of feels like we were talking about the Queen's Blood challenges.
Yeah.
Where Fort Condor this time around felt like, there's like one-ish ways to get through this. Like, I need to play this almost perfectly and follow like kind of a set strategy here. Whereas in the Yuffie DLC, it was like so many units. I could like have all my different builds. Like, I like this unit, I'm gonna throw that in. But this one felt like you had to do a very specific strategy.
There's a lot of the game that in the minigame fashion, that final reward is almost perfect execution, where you have to like the chocobo flying and stuff. You have to execute this perfectly if you want to get it. I was like, this is so. I spent the greater portion of 30 minutes to 60 minutes on a lot of those, just getting it exactly. And it's like, I don't think this is bad, but it's definitely hard as balls, man.
I definitely think they were going for that challenge for some of those. Yeah, especially the chocobo gliding mini games ones. I watched the one I struggled on, and you did it too, Max. Like, okay, good. Like, I feel like everyone's gonna have a little bit of trouble on that last one. With this, with the last two so far away, I'm like, oh my, what are you doing? But I do have a question for clarification, because I do know difficulty impacts some of the mini games. I don't know if it impacts all of them. For example, chocobo racing is 100% impacted by difficulty, what you choose, easy, normal.
Easy mode.
So I played on normal for review. I've played through. I've done hard mode already, and I noticed it was definitive proof because the gold cup race, the story gold saucer chocobo race, you have to do on hard mode. I had like a god tier build because you carried over progress from my chocobo, flawless execution, only won it in like the last half of the last lap. And I'm like, holy crap, dude. Like, this is way harder than it was on normal. So I don't know what's impacted, because some mini games also have hard modes, like Gears and Gambits and Fort Condor have hard mode. And those have some more severe restrictions. Like for Fort Condor, you only get so many of each unit. You don't, even if you have the resources, you have a finite cap on how many times you can spawn certain units. And so there is pretty much a one-way build order to win those. Same with Gears and Gambits. And for some reason, I didn't have as much trouble with either of those. But for others, I did. So I don't know if it's definitive which ones are impacted other than chocobo racing. But I know they patched something recently to adjust mini-game difficulty.
Yeah. Then other people were saying it. And I think even my first playthrough was in dynamic. So some people were saying that I turned this back to normal when I played this, or I turned this to easy, because even I think dynamic is sort of acting like just a middle barrier between a normal and hard most of the time, because I still don't really understand like how it works. I when I was going through a lot of the mini games and stuff, there was some moments where I'm like, okay, I'm turning 60 FPS on, and I'm also going to turn it down a difficulty to see what it's like, and it was easier. I was like, okay, that's interesting. But for the majority of the game, like in terms of game challenge and difficulty, even outside of mini games, for a lot of it, I'm like, this game's kind of easy. I actually wish this was harder a lot of the time, and I'm like, I wonder if normal mode is harder, because maybe it's scaling incorrectly. And I went back to normal and enemies just die. And I was like, oh no, it is okay. So it is doing a relatively decent job at like padding things out somewhat. They make enemies a bit more spongy.
Yeah, hard mode is definitely, if you're looking for like the actual challenge, like hard mode, you will, like, some bosses have not necessarily different mechanics, but how their attacks actually really work are different. For example, the Temple of the Ancients, the fire dragon, the one that breathes lava, and the halfway point, there's like, it just does that. And it like, if it gets it off with like even like part of its like chest body part intact, It's almost like a one shot. The red dragon. It's like you will not survive that attack if you don't like take proper like measures in normal and on dynamic. It's easily survivable. So like and like the demon wall thing. Whoa, man, you gotta be like if you don't do things correctly on that, you are just done in that fight. It will one shot you. Yeah,
hard mode's already like really fun and challenging in part 1, but part 1's like a much more siphoned game, like with much less boss fights in it. Right? This game has so many boss fights, has so many big epic scaled fights that are already like really challenging on dynamic or even normal. So I'm like, damn, dude, hard mode of this must be absolutely bonkers because I'm hearing hard mode gets new attacks, like new music. There's like a lot of crazy different things that happen with hard mode boss fights throughout the game.
Yeah. And I will also say like, maybe don't look, try not to look up like builds first unless you're like really struggling. Like, you know, that's, I mean, obviously play however you want to play, but that's how I approached it. And like, I will just say chapter 1, the Viper, what's it called? The Python.
Midgar Summer.
Yeah, Midgar Summer. Jeez. It's fine. It's phase 3 attack. It's like the characters are shouting, "Get to land!" Not the poison, but the fire one. Like, "Get to land!"
Beta, yeah.
It like one shots me. I'm like, "What the shit is this?" And I'm like, "Okay." I'm like, "What do I do here?" I spent so long on just that boss, and I was like, "Okay, game, what the hell is going on here?"
The interesting. That's what I kind of dig about hard mode is that hard mode's really going to make you focus on game mechanics. Like you're going to have to start utilizing this stuff because there's so much different ways that you can just play through Rebirth in terms of like compared to Remake, especially that the developers naturally assumed that the very, very, very large majority of people that play this game are just literally going to match square against everything, are barely going to utilize the other stuff, are just going to match square against everything. Does the game still accommodate that kind of a play style in a way that is like punishing in some times, but also not in others? And I think it does. I think it does a pretty good job at balancing, like most people said, you do not need to use synergy skills throughout the entire playthrough. If you do, the game gets substantially easier. Like your ability to build ATB, a lot of people complain, you don't build a lot of ATB in this game. And I'm like, dog, yes you do. Like you just have to start utilizing some of the things your characters have instead of just mashing square. So it's a common criticism, but you have to also assume the developers have to account for a ridiculous amount of play styles because the game just gives you so many tools.
I would love if you just Remake 1 and 16 as well. I would love it if just hard mode was unlocked from the jump, so I could like fully engage with the combat system like to the maximum degree, because like, you know, these are long games. I don't go back to replay them for like a lot of years, so it's like I want that first playthrough to be
I think
because you have the easy modes as well, which is awesome. So just let everyone.
I think that's dynamic. I think that's why they added dynamic mode because FF7 Remake Rebirth hard mode is just New Game Plus. Mm-hmm. It's designed for you to have all the materia.
Exactly. You
need all the weapons. You need them, or else you're just gonna get swiped. So I think they did a good job with dynamic because dynamic at least kept things relatively challenging. Because I spent all my time just like exhausting every area, and I felt like I should be OP as shit right now, but I wasn't. Like each fight, the bosses lived.
Yeah, I agree. I think the way they do hard mode right now, it is meant to be New Game Plus, and it is designed around that. They would have to fundamentally change a few things about that. I would say where they could maybe go for more challenge beyond like dynamic is just increasing the complexity of some of maybe like the boss fights in terms of like what you're dealing with. That's something they did with 16 recently with the first DLC and what they're going to be doing with the next one to address some of the complaints about it being too easy is they started making the boss fights have a lot more mechanics, like a mechanic diarrhea. Basically, it's like these things are just overlapping. You have to deal with so much. Like you're going to get hit. You're going to get hit by shit. You're going to die. It's like, it's okay. You're going to learn this dance. And that's one approach. But also they could just, do it in a way where maybe, it pushes back a little bit more on the material you're using, because I think because they added in the folio, everyone gets the 4 elemental abilities without needing materia. So they addressed that complaint from Remake.
Yeah, I'm like, I saw that in the very beginning of my first playthrough, and as I was playing through the game at the start, and I'm like, oh, this is non-MP costing element. This is for hard mode. But it isn't for hard mode as you play through. This is for situations when the majority of enemies you fight in the game are like will be pressured from elemental weakness, and you check on that character and they don't have the appropriate materia. Well, now they do. Now you can do something that doesn't like crank the damage because, you know, I think we all realize this as we play through the game. MP is very valuable in this game, and you don't get a lot of it. They scale it down a ton because, to be real, in Remake, magic is OP as fuck. Like, it is so powerful. Magic is so good in the first game, and it's so, like, it doesn't really scale with the things the other characters do very well. And you get a lot of MP in the first game, too. So that's what they were like, okay, so magic's, like, valuable now. So if you're gonna, like, crank an Aga spell, it's gonna literally shit out damage.
Folio's giving you, like, +3 mana. It's like, oh, I need it. I want that mana.
Yeah.
and again, I didn't do a lot of those, so I did not have a lot of MP on a lot of my characters in the end. I was like feeling it. I was like, dude, I'm running out of MP after a couple spells. But yeah, like that's what that stuff was for. It was just like, here's all the elements that every character can have, so you can pressure any enemy in the game if they have an elemental weakness and not have to worry about MP. Also, the hard mode accessibility of MP being even more valuable in a hard mode, you know?
Yeah, you can't, again, same the deal, no item use. Benches only give you back HP. There is a way to recover MP, though. The destructible environment objects like boxes, some of those will give you back a little bit of MP.
Just like Remake.
But it's not substantial. And from people who know more about the game's balance than I do, and have already done all like the hard stuff like well in advance, they were saying that like the MP and HP absorption tactics, like using those materias in Remake, their potency has been nerfed in Rebirth. So while they are still useful, they're not like you'll never have to worry about MP again if you equip this stuff. They have cap stuff, they have nerfed some stuff. So this hard mode is, I think, in my opinion, is more challenging than Remakes, and the hard Chadley stuff is more challenging. For sure.
I saw some. Go ahead.
I turned away from dynamic because when I play RPGs, I like leveling up and obtaining.
You like
gears.
being powerful.
Well, yeah, because I like earning that power.
Exactly.
I like doing the side quests and being like, yo, because I do these side quests, I'm like 5 levels higher, so that'll give me an edge here.
Exactly.
So when they like scale with you, it just. Yeah, it doesn't feel as good for me, I guess.
I made that observation early on when I was like, we were playing the game in the demo form at like the preview event, and I kind of like was doing all this random shit in the grasslands and not really fighting a lot. I was like environmental and calm, and then I was like, I'm running out of time, and I bum rushed the snake. And he destroyed me. I was like, oh, god damn, I'm fucking dead. And this is just normal, right? So I thought it was kind of cool where it's like, oh, so wait a minute, this isn't like Remake where you can just like bum rush the bosses. The problem Remake had was that there was barely any leveling. There was no places for you to grind until like the very end of the game in Remake. It really didn't exist. So that's like a complaint. They solved that here, where it's like, okay, you want to grind? We're going to give you a ton of shit to grind. You're going to whoop the shit out of that boss when you come back to him. So I'm like, that's actually great. Once again, accompanying a variety of play styles, because Remake, you really didn't have that. You had like some, but not like in build stuff, but not really. This game gives you the ability to become buff and then whoop that thing's ass.
So satisfying.
We talked a lot about like difficulty and builds and stuff. I want to ask one kind of like last question before we start getting into some of the, like the real spoiler stuff.
Sure.
The vibes of the game, preserving kind of like the goofy ass nature of a lot of like what we experienced in the PlayStation 1 days and the PlayStation 1 version of that. Were you like kind of surprised they were able to like pull it off? And do you actually think they pulled off a lot of it?
I'll say in compendium with that, like the theme of the game, the feel of the game, like a lot of those elements coming together, the way towns feel, the way traversal between environments feel, the way you interact with the environments and are rewarded for it. I feel like this game was a dream. I feel like I could not have imagined a better way to execute an open world or like a large environment Final Fantasy VII. I don't believe they were able to accomplish what they did with the time they had. It seems impossible to me that the game was actually real. So that's my impression in the end. The game felt like it was, as I was halfway, I had like a halfway point where I'm reviewing it and I'm like, I feel like I'm dreaming. Like, I feel like this should not exist. And the way it's handled is so well at every single point that I'm just like, there were so few parts that I had like actual legit criticisms and not just like minor problems with like something here and there. So just in total, like the vibes, handling a goofy nature, but also handling dramatic moments, all that kind of stuff, the way characters evolve and the way you learn about characters and their backstories, I'm like, how is this so good? Like, how are they cooked way too hard?
Oh yeah.
Calm was so cozy.
Oh gosh.
Jeez, dude.
God, I love Calm.
Cosmo fucking Canyon.
Oh, the music in Cosmo Canyon. I would just go there and just like walk away to like get some water and stuff, just blasting that music.
The absolute, like, you walk into Nibelheim and you just dread. You just get this overall, like, this place is dreadful, dude. Like, it's so good. And I just had like, I think there's like, again, minor complaints because the game's so good that I want it to be even like gooder at some points. I had a moment where I went to Junon and it was like sunset. So I was like, dude, I want to go back to the grasslands and see if it's sunset. And it was. I was like, holy crap, I could barely recognize this place. It looked substantially different at sunset, but that doesn't happen at many points later in the game. I really wanted to see the Corel Desert at sunset again, like the first time you fight Dyne and stuff like that. I'm like, dude, this place looks so different. I actually legit loved the different time of days that you saw for some environments, but not everything. But it was locked to chapters. I really want them to give us like a nighttime, a morning, and like a sunset. I think that would be so cool in the future.
I think it's 100% coming.
Just go full Dragon's Dogma.
I think it's 100%
I don't even know if they need to do that. Dude, I don't want them to have to go full day-night cycle. Just give me like a fixed point in the day where you can make the environment look different, because day-night cycles can be kind of hard. And clearly, if there's a one criticism, the FF7 remake and Rebirth games have an issue with daytime. Just in general, like the way they handle full light. The same thing was the same way in Remake. The fully lit environments looked pretty good most of the time, but even in Rebirth, it's like, yeah, daytime areas look okay, but clearly when they take away light, it looks amazing. It's like, wow, this is where this game really shines, dude. I would love it if we can just like take away some light from some of these situations and actually see low lit areas, because I truly feel that that's where this shit shines. There's only one spot in the game we get that's like that outside of like some flashback shit, and it's Gilgamesh's Island. It's at nighttime.
So sick,
and I'm like,
dude.
this place looks so cool, dude.
Yeah.
That makes me realize most of FF7 Rebirth takes place in the day.
Dude, I love, like, lighting is my favorite thing in games because I love survival horror and it's all about lighting. But I remember in 16, Joshua, dude, has the little like floating flame right
so
there.
Good.
It was so awesome.
It's the same thing in even Remake Part 1, where it's like, dude, Midgar is literally Las Vegas. You turn on the daytime to this place and it sucks ass. It's a dirty stink fest. And then you take away the light and it's way better. I'm like, yeah, this place is awesome. Look at this shit.
I mean, I pretty much would almost like guarantee that they're gonna have kind of like ability to set like the day night at some like in part
really
3.
hope so.
I don't know how granular it needs to be. Like you have to go to like a spot to set it. I mean, they can even like, you know, shout out to Simmons here, his favorite series, Xenoblade, where they literally picked like this hour of the 24-hour day. You could set it like so fine like that, but just something to switch it from like day night would just be fine.
Neutral light, sunset, nighttime. You could just choose, and it'd be cool if they put gameplay things in there. Where like, this shit only comes out at night. Okay, well I'll just go change the time of day. You know,
I would hope they do that.
That is a way that you could expand the world in Part 3. Right, that's a way that you could actually like make things a little bit more dynamic. And again, I went back to the grasslands with a completely different like time of day, and I was like, dude, I don't even recognize this place. Like, where am I right now? The same thing happens in Junon when you wake up the next day and you have to do like the dog fetch quests and stuff, and you're like, oh, this place isn't blazing orange anymore. What the hell? It looks completely different.
Yeah, it'll probably be at like the inns, and I saw someone mention Chocobo rest stops because you already pick like next day or till like rest for a little bit just to heal up, but it doesn't change the time of day, so they could probably just do it there. Real quick, you were saying like just traversing this game, going from towns to environments, like how it's a dream that they did this. So I didn't watch the state of play. Even I was like 60 hours into the game, watched the first 10 minutes of that state of play, or for first 10 seconds. I said, nope, bye.
Yep.
I'm like, I'm
No
60
doubt.
hours and you're spoiling me. Bye. I'm like, not till I finish. So I didn't yet catch the bit at the end that they said they actually describe it as a seamless overworld. And when
Yes.
you get the tiny Bronco in chapter 12 and you can go out into the water and like the ocean, like, wait a second, I
Dude,
can
that was
sail over to
insane.
Junon right now. I'm going by the minecart part. I did. Like, wait a second.
And the game
what?
turns into a pirate adventure. I'm
I
just
was like, yo, is this Kingdom Hearts 3? Like pirates?
I can't. It was literally like there is. I've already gone to like 6 zones, and by the time you get to Nibelheim, I started to feel the fatigue a little bit. But the nice part about Nibelheim is that number one, it's smaller, and number two, they give you the best accessible area chocobo, where it's like, oh, if you want to traverse, this chocobo's the best for it, and it's this is so refreshing, flying around everywhere. This is so different. So again, as soon as in FF7 Rebirth, or I'd say remake, there's points where it's like this goes on a little too long. I started feeling that at several points throughout remake when I was playing it again. I really like this game, but there's certain points where they outstay their welcome a bit too often. Every time that happened to me in my first playthrough of Rebirth, they did something else. As soon as I was feeling that emotion where it's like, yeah, I'm getting sort of exhausted of the way this is set up, and like now we're in Nibelheim. Okay, but there's some differences here, but I'm getting a little exhausted of it. Now you have a boat that goes everywhere. And I'm like, wait a minute, not just wait a minute. I actively went to the ocean and I was like, I could just cross this whole ocean. Oh my God, they're not stopping me, dude. And I was excited all over again. It once again invigorated me with like this, Jesus Christ, this game's insane sort of feelings.
When I pulled my map out at that part too, and I was like going through the water, I was like, yo, this is barely revealing the map. How huge is this ocean right here?
It's such a great moment in the game where it's just like it almost reminded me of like OG FF7 when you first leave Midgar and you're just like, okay, so this is what the world is. Cool, that's fun. Wait a minute, now you're giving me this too? Wait, what is happening? So I thought it was such a great moment.
Yeah, I was really blown away by it, but I also, to me, from what I understand about like what goes on behind the scenes, this explained a lot of things to me. I feel like they have put, like the development team have put in a lot of the legwork towards part 3, because when I hit that chapter 12 part, I'm like, oh, this explains so much. I understand now with the engine they're using why they're having so much performance problems, because everything is actually connected to. Okay, this makes
seamless.
way more sense now. And they're trying to build out what's going to be in part 3, and they've already talked about, we got to find a way to make this work and redo some of the old zones, because we're going to make you fly at some point. Like, okay.
Yeah. You have to realize how challenging that is for an Unreal Engine 4 game, just in general. Like, the accomplishments the devs have here, even though there is clearly technical shortcomings and a lot of shortcuts to make this stuff possible, what they've achieved with the UE4 game on the scale this game is, I don't know if it's been done on a lot of things. Most open world games do not use Unreal Engine 4 just because of the way it handles assets. So I had a moment where I was after stream and I was testing settings, and I was on my TV trying the game out, and I started in calm, and I just ran all the way to Junon with no loading. And I just had that entire way. I went that entire way. And then I realized, wait a minute, if I park the tiny Bronco and do this again, I can just walk all the way to Junon, get in the tiny Bronco, take it all the way to Corel, to Costa del Sol, go through Corel, go through. I can literally run the entire map of the game. It'll take you like 45 minutes. I'm like, that's wild. And there's no loading. There's no loading. It just seamlessly is just there. And I'm like, this is crazy.
There is the one. Did you encounter the fog storm, like not storm, but like really cloudy weather in the ocean?
Yes.
When I was doing that, my chat was pointing out they're like, that's a loading trick. Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. It's loading. Don't get me wrong. It's definitely doing that. It's not
like a
stuff.
zoned loading. Yeah.
But there's no like cut to black,
yeah,
and then you're just waiting for a while to do something. There's none of that in the game. It's wild to me that you can fast travel from one completely different environment to a completely different environment on the other side of the world within 2 seconds, but for some fucking reason, I'm sitting at a black screen when I'm in Chadley fights in between matches for like 8 seconds. I'm like, what is happening? Let me fight the next thing. Come on.
Chadley messing with us.
Yeah.
Testing our patience.
So yeah, I mean, I think we're all pretty impressed with what they achieved in the game from these perspectives. But we talked about the vibes, the atmosphere, and how they accomplished this. I think it's time now maybe to get into some of like the story elements.
Jesus Christ, where do we start?
I would like to start at the very beginning because I can give you a little behind the scenes thing. Because you were both at the preview event. Sure. And you were showing the beginning of the game, but they did not show something specific because Huber didn't know this was coming. Because when I got the code for the game and played it, it's Huber. They showed you the beginning of the game. Why didn't you mention this thing to me?
I couldn't believe it, dude.
So they did not show the opening sequence with Zach because I was like, if everyone was allowed to talk about it, this would be all over social media right now. And I'm like, why? I was like, they didn't show you that. I saw you play that, Max, and you didn't know it was coming either.
We were 100% under the impression, oh, we've seen the beginning of the game. Yeah, let's just start getting through it. And then all of a sudden, it's not the beginning. I'm like, what has happened? So they somehow kept that a secret. They somehow kept like the opening with Zach is not like what the so the first like 5 minutes of the game are a massive shock of everybody in your party is dead. Tifa's dead. Like R13 dies saving you. I'm like, what the hell is happening, bro? So anyway, it was that you have to ultimately realize, like, go back and think in our thought process. This timeline shit was not known. Right? All the theories we had from the previous podcasts were not solidified. They were hinting at it, and there was ultimanias and stuff that were getting into it a little bit more. But the game, like, hand feeding you, hey, there's multiple timelines and shit. Instantly. Your characters exist in other places. Most people thought that footage was like Shinra propaganda, and I'm like, dude, that doesn't make any sense. Like, there's 2 timelines happening here. So ultimately, it's kind of crazy that stuff starts the game and we don't get actual explanation of it until the end of the game. We have to wait. We get teased from that shit for almost a little too much. Yeah. We get teased way too much, and they save it for just the final chapter.
I was actually shocked how long they went without really revisiting like the Zach or the multiple timeline stuff like in the structure of this game. You go a good long while.
Dude, for me, it was 30 hours. 30 hours later, we get the second Zach cutscene. I was like, what? This is bonkers, dude. I forgot that was happening. It was so many days ago.
Yeah. And I mean, even like the end of that Zach first scene, like they knew what they were doing. Like having the ribbon fall off, the white materia bounce, playing the music. It's like I was like, wait a second, what are we doing right now?
We're in mad spoiler territory, so you have to start assuming like dev expectations, player expectations, devs messing with players' expectations. Yeah, I'm gonna ask you guys right now. Did all of you guys see Aerith die at the start, seemingly die, and assume as you're playing the game that when our Aerith dies, she's gonna be alive in Zach's timeline? She's gonna like that Aerith is gonna wake up from her coma. Did anybody else feel that?
Oh, you mean like as we saw the progression of that's what was gonna happen?
Yes.
Okay, so let me just say this real quick. I'll get this out of the way, and I'll try to be brief. For the longest time playing this game,
don't be brief.
I wasn't. Because I don't think this is right, so we don't need to waste time on something that's wrong in the end. But like I was juggling. Is it Are we doing with like a multiverse,
or is it already one timeline?
Are we doing with Purgatory? I was like, are we dealing with are we seeing is this Purgatory? Like, are Cloud and Aerith really unconscious right now? And everything works. I was like, oh, please don't let Remake and Rebirth be like a fucking dream, man. Yeah. And like they're about to wake up and all this is I was like,
dreamscape.
Don't you dare do this nonsense. I was like, I will be so angry if you do that. So I was like very like timidly advancing, like, please don't let that be that. But then it's like it's not that at all, because you get these hints like that can't possibly be working. But go ahead.
Yeah, I was almost disappointed by it, where it was like, I was wondering if they're going to go in this direction, where it's like, oh, so we're going to go through the same thing that happens that we think is going to happen to her, but then she's going to be alive over there with him. And it's like, okay, I get that, but it's like, I felt like that was going to happen. I felt like they were teasing that for like the longest time.
I mean, everything was on the table for me, Max, when I was playing through this, because all I knew is that we had defied fate. and that anything is possible now. And also another thing we were introduced pretty early on is that both Aerith and Red 13 had lost that knowledge. The knowledge of future events, which
we finally know what happens there,
and we were and like it's been explained enough to death now by like so many other YouTube videos. If you don't know what's going on, that's why the white materia becomes the clear materia, because materia is powered by its memories, and they've been stripped, and so there is no more white materia anymore. That's why it's clear, and so that they assume that was a result of the arbiters, the original arbiters of fate, stripping that from them. So I'm like. Yeah, like I was wrestling with that. We had that going on. Like, why do they lose their memories? And not knowing Nanaki's real voice for a little while. Like, is Era talking to like a time ghost? Like,
yes. Like,
who's
what
he talking to?
They, dude, they fuck with you so much. This game, and we're not even talking about the ending, which is super fucking with you. They are going. It's almost like they were aware of like all the fan stuff in the first game, and they were like teetering it. So can we do this? Are people going to figure this out? Okay, so we thought we were crazy. Level 4 shit, I'm just some insane, Doc Brown Back to the Future 2 guy here. But at the same point, no, it was all there. They just lay it out. But they take this entire game to do it. I was like, I got to Cosmo Canyon. I'm like, yo, so Bugenhagen, you ever heard about other timelines? Not going to mention anything about that? Bugenhagen, why aren't you talking about the things I thought you would be talking about? And he doesn't know shit. Nobody knows shit about it. And I'm like, wow, they're saving this for something? Like, are they never going to talk about what's happening with Zack? We literally don't get any of it until the final fucking chapter, dude. I'm like, this is crazy. That's actually a criticism of mine. I think they hold out a bit too much throughout the whole game, and they save it just for the very end.
Yeah, I think it didn't bother me because I was expecting that. I was like, they're playing this like
they play the long game like Remake does. They save it for the very end.
I think it's their balancing act, because obviously that's part of the appeal of playing these games is what are they going to change? What's going to stay the same? What are they going to embellish? What are they going to cut? And I think they've even said before, the developers, that it's going to mostly follow the beats one for one.
And it did.
And Remake follows everything from where it should till the end minus Rocket Town. We just don't see Rocket Town was supposed to happen, but it didn't happen. So it's like, we'll see that next chapter.
The two big omissions are Bone Village and Rocket Town. And it's not that they're gone. I don't think they're actually gone. I think obviously Rocket Town's coming back, and I think Bone Village is going to show up some other place. The other big one that I think that I was thinking early on, because even in the OG game it doesn't make sense of this place's location. Temple of the Ancients got moved. Yeah, it got moved to the northern area, which makes a lot more sense. Yeah,
everyone was saying like it's just because where they go next. It's so weird. They travel half the world to go where they go next, and now it's like it's right next door. So it makes way more sense. So that's just a product of convenience. I don't think that like you should read anything more into that, but I think they want to preserve that kind of like the remake experience as much as possible, so people have that joy. And I think it's a balancing act of maybe not letting things get too out of control, too convoluted, too soon. That like you're the magic that like you were talking about, like the magical feel of this game, would it be diminished a little bit if you're like wrestling with more than a few like morsels? Because we'd get like an occasional flash sideways, whatever we want to call it, to like a Zack perspective or whatever. Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't like Lost, but I'll use that reference. But yeah, we get glimpses, but it doesn't really deep dive into that until the end, as you said.
Yeah, and again, the problem is like the morsel feeding they give us that leads up to it, where it's like the beginning of it is like, okay, so Zack's in a timeline where Aerith is dead, and they're pretty much confirming with us that she seemingly dies in Zack's timeline, and then they tease us again, she's not dead, she's just in a coma, and so is Cloud. Okay. But also their world is on the brink of destruction. They don't have a meteor. They have like a time rift. Everyone's preparing for the end. Okay.
The doomed.
Okay. Yeah, the doomed world.
I thought we were going to get a time cop situation and have like two clouds meet and start like, that's where my mind went. Or it's like, we have like an army of clouds.
Everyone's Sora when Sora time travels.
I think we're definitely getting into where this story is going to go into part 3. About our characters having a perception, clearly Aerith and Sephiroth having a perception of all their different existences through all the different timelines and shit. And I think just gonna throw it out there right now, there's a reason that Aerith gives Cloud an empty materia. that's going to have the memories of all the other clouds.
Dude.
And he's going to become mega fucking Cloud to whoop Sephiroth's ass in the end. I'm still hanging on it, bro. We're going to see Advent Children footage. We're going to see some shots of like, where's the goddamn like the mecha sword? I don't know if it's going to be Disney related. I don't know if we're going to see that, but you're going to see like all the clouds that have like existed in the other timelines that have fought Sephiroth, and that's what's going to give him the memories of all that shit, the power to fucking do this shit. That's what the empty materia is for, in my opinion.
All right, let me ask you some questions about the story first before you get too wild here.
Just give me the tape.
And there's something that's not related to crazy stuff, although some of these scenes do have relevant information. Because I don't know where else to ask it, but it's story spoilers. I actually don't know how much you've seen this either, Max. The Gold Saucer date scenes.
Yes, I've seen them all.
So the information you get from those as well, like, how did you like how that played out? And some of those had a little bit, some were like good character development, but like some like Red 13's, like
Red 13's is really plotty.
Yeah.
It's like, whoa, okay, so they straight tell us that Red 13 and Aerith could see the future. That like Aerith gave Red 13, so they hint that like Aerith touching Marlene to sort of console her in Remake and also to console Red 13 was to show her, I'm a good guy, we actually know each other, don't worry. And but that process gives them like they can see what's going to happen later on. Marlene is just like, Sephiroth is going to kill Aerith, Zach. I know this, she told me. And she doesn't know how or why. And it isn't like they're connected to the live stream. No, Aerith, Omni Aerith or some shit, has the ability to like give you information, but also maybe a lot more information, like visions of the future type shit. So I thought hiding that in just like one scene in the Red 13 scene was like, whoa, okay, that's a huge reveal. I'm kind of shocked that that's only in Red 13's.
Yeah. That is so awesome. That level of storytelling, that is so hardcore. Just like,
it is.
Hey, this one optional scene for this little thing, we're gonna drop a huge plot point.
Because Aerith's scene plays out pretty similar to the OG, right? Like kind of. From what I recall of seeing it a few days ago, it plays out pretty similar to the OG because you always go on the date with Aerith in the old school one. It's really hard not to. And Tifa's is like a bit different because now there's like neutral dates and then intimate dates and stuff that actually are like the same thing but just way more and stuff. So there's a lot to unpack there. And they also have like a Kate Sith one with Vincent and Sid. Yep. And I'm like, what the shit, dude? You can do this?
Yep. That was pretty
really
funny.
Cool.
I don't think you can get that one on first playthrough either. I think that one has to be, unless proven wrong. I mean, I would. Yeah. But that was cool they even included it. But like, even said the Red 13 one, having those like serious story information there, but also like balancing it with like kind of like tender moments about your paws really are soft when those
little gags coming around are so funny. Like they talk about that on the Corel minecart area, and I was like, this is some funny, dude. The character dialogue, like the character expansion,
just like petting Red was so nice.
Did you see the Yuffie date yet?
No.
Oh,
it's hella cute.
Precious, dude.
It's hella cute. It's like Yuffie doesn't know what it's like to be on a date, So she's like, so I'm gonna practice with you, Cloud. We're gonna figure this out together. It's very cute.
She describes like meeting Zach as a kid and like misunderstanding like what he meant, and so she wanted to become like a train harder to like beat him up because she thought he was an asshole. And you're like, oh, but he was just being really nice with me, and like she like gets all sad, and so Cloud plays along with her, like the Crisis Core scene where like Zach plays along, Cloud does it too. It's like, oh my god, this game can't handle it.
It's also, this game is also the realization that like everybody loves Zach. Like that's like the big like remake like FF7 Rebirth sort of thing, Square Enix thing to the fans. A lot of this is like, a lot of Zach pandering, but in a way that's necessary because he's never gotten like a really great moment like in the sun outside of very sad shit. Now it's like, everybody loves Zach. Cisne loves Zach. You're very lucky, Aerith. This guy, I fell in love with this dude because he made me realize it was Yuffie describes it as like her awakening of like boys are kind of cool. Like it was like that shit, but it was Zach. It's like, this game's trying very hard. It's going out of its way because Zach is a dope character and he finally gets his moments here.
For sure. Yeah, the Sisane callbacks were really cool with that.
Oh yeah, in Gungaga. Yeah, that was
I
like
loved
there's a
all
good
that.
nods there too.
Yeah.
I'm curious what you guys thought about the expanded Gi segment in Cosmo Canyon and getting more it gives you like world building about they can't return to the planet, the forging of the black materia. Like, how did you feel about
This
that?
is one of the most interesting parts for me.
Yeah.
I
One of
really
the most
love
interesting
this
parts
stuff.
of the game. Yeah.
Yeah.
So some of the most interesting parts of the game are complete new shit. The fact that Shinra bulldozed over like an old republic around the grasslands
Yeah.
and stuff. The old Republic of Junon type shit. I was like, what is this? What are we talking about? Once again, adds more expansion to Shinra as they like got close to making their Midgar, right? Why that is there, why it is the way it is. Also, the creation of the black materia, I fucking love it. I love it. Like, we have a weird tribe of creatures that have existed for just as long as the Cetra, and the only way they can die is to create a materia of hate and spite to essentially blow up the planet because they can't die. They're stuck in a purgatory similar to like Pirates of the Caribbean dudes.
Yeah, give me some Return of the King vibes. Like
Exactly.
Yeah.
Let set us free type shit. I'm these guys are just ghosts. Like that's all they are in the old one. They're just ghosts, and they kill Red 13's dad. That's it, dude. So that expansion was huge. Also, another thing that I really appreciate is the Cetra. They do the one thing that I love about Remake and I love about Rebirth that they hammer home thematically is that things are not black and white. Things are not like good guy, bad guy, Shinra, bad guy. No, there are people that are good people that are there. The same thing is done with the Cetra. The Cetra weren't just some benevolent race of like people that existed. No. They were stewards of the planet, and they also potentially did that in ways that were not good. So they juggle this thing that like the Gi are a part of that. They're part of this weird gray area in between where it's like, oh, so there's this moral ambiguity to a lot of parts of the world in FF7 that was not really there before to a certain degree. They really hammer that home. So I really appreciated that.
Yeah, I mean, I liked it. I liked how it expanded upon it because, as you said, some things were just like kind of glossed over in the original game, and so they're just giving it more depth. And I kind of like, they've expended all their options, and it's like they just want release, and it's like they're not really caring about what happens after. They just want to be over. And that debate, even amongst you, because they were betrayed by the Cetra, they were like, the Cetra promised us, no, you're not getting it. And now you're doing the same thing. And Cloud's like, they can't have it, neither can Sephiroth. But like, even Barrett's like, there's no way we're giving them that, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, we
they can't have this
it.
Just the existence of the black materia in itself, it's so scary, right? You start to like realize, what is this thing?
So
like,
intense and like nuclear
wait a
bomb
minute.
elements.
It's like a wild nuclear bomb, but on a level that is like even more vast than that, because it's like this thing is technically made by aliens. We're trying to describe that like the Gi aren't from this planet. They can't return back to it. Naturally, they're not from here. They got here somehow, but the planet just doesn't accept them. And no, you can't go back. So what's their solution? We just want peace and freedom. We're going to destroy it. We just want us out of here. Like the planet will not find sympathy for us. So it's like interesting. That also leads into like the overall FF7 concept that like the first ending is the bad ending. That like, Geostigma eventually like maybe kills everybody or some shit. That eventually everyone succumbed to some weird virus and just Red 13 and animals and stuff are left and humans all die. Where it's like, oh, so there's some weird moral ambiguity with like the planet isn't just like, we just want this. Like sometimes no, like you might actually be a huge problem. We're going to get rid of you.
I have some follow-up questions later about the Gi and their relevance to like the overarching story as well as the black materia. But I wanted to know what you thought about like the general expansion of that, because I kind of expected you guys would both like really, really enjoy that and like that expansion. The other thing,
just like Red 13 coming to terms with like his dad and like what really happened, like that was so emotional.
Yeah.
That stuff was amazing.
That scene was perfect. I couldn't believe it. And then it leads into the Gi stuff, like the pacing of that. Like now here's some crazy mystery. It was like, whoa, dude, this I was riveted at that point. I was ready to go.
I know there's like a lot of different plot points that like we could ask questions for days, but I kind of like do want to move some of like the bigger stuff. I want to start maybe like in chapter 13. the dungeon, Temple of the Ancients, the black materia, and like the whole like. So when we get there, they use the key, it was song and it's just a key. The whole thing happens. I'm curious about your reaction, like Hojo. Yeah, I want to ask a little bit about Hojo for a little while because that man seems to know a little bit more than he's letting on, and like I wonder if you guys have any like thought a little bit more about Hojo and like is there more going on than like what we expect from the original game with Hojo?
I mean, he always knows what's up, dude. He's doing so many experiments. He's been doing experiments for decades. Yeah, especially on Red 13. Like, could have read his mind or done like who God knows what.
Hojo's the actual like piece of shit worst bad guy like
number one
of all of them. He's like the ultimate piece. He was the same way in the old game too.
Pure evil.
They expand him a bit in this game and at the end of Remake where it's like, I think Hojo's going to figure out all this timeline shit. And I thought it was going to be Bugenhagen. I thought it was like, if there's characters in our main timeline that are going to have like an understanding of this, it might be like Bugenhagen. He shockingly doesn't. Like he gives you some general information about the planet. But as the game goes along, it seems like Hojo starts becoming a little bit more aware of what's happening. But there's a really great line that I think is also slightly meta, where at the end of the game, there's like a helicopter ride.
Here it is.
Where they're going back and Rufus asks Hojo, so what do you make out of that crazy thing that happened back there, which was like the crazy black materia Sephiroth thing? And he's like, well, I can't really pull a discernible conclusion, but I think we need to be much more ambitious. So
stands the reason we could dream bigger. It's
and
like,
I feel like that is setting up for part 3 to possibly be a much crazier game than we think it's going to be. I think there's a set of expectations of what part 3 is going to be, and like the reunion and stuff like that. And a lot of events are going to happen, but I think part 3 is going to get really fucking crazy because now our characters in our current timeline are also like hyper aware that some weird shit is going down.
He knows more than he's letting on. He's obsessed with like the reunion and what's going to happen with that, but he's also obsessed with the weapons and like wanting like lives. Like I think he definitely knows more than he's let on, but I have something else I want to ask about him later because yes, I definitely agree. He's like more knowledgeable and he is a real villain, but I'm not fully convinced that like he's like the end game or he thinks he's as smart as he is.
He thinks he is, and he will be up until the very end when he gets wrecked.
So I guess I should just say it now because it'd be weird to like think. I think you maybe think this a little bit too, Max. I mean, I think everyone in this game, in all the games, I think this is like Jenova manipulating everyone. I think even Hojo is being manipulated by Jenova as well because Jenova is trying to because I think Jenova is trying to cheat if its end goal. I think even the Gi are being manipulated by Jenova as well. I think that like it's all part of their ploy to win in the end. And when we get into the multiverse stuff, I'll give like more examples. But I just want to say, I believe like Hojo is being played by Jenova, and he thinks he's like gonna attain godhood or something, or he's gonna obtain the promised land himself and screw over Sephiroth or whatever. But he's going to get what's coming to him. But I do expect him to get super powerful before that. I expect him to be like a major boss fight or something in part 3 because like. He's going to like obtain something. He's going to be like, oh shit, I did it. And it's like, nah, you really didn't do it. You got played.
This is the best archetype, dude. The Orochimaru, William Birkin, mad scientist.
Here's what's very cool about the FF7 Remake series so far, being able to balance the OG game with like new concepts and execution of those concepts, where the next game is going to be wild and crazy, and there's going to be a lot more crazy stuff in the next one, but I still am 100% faithful. We're going to see all the same locations that we remember from the previous game, and a lot of the same events are going to happen. I still think we're going to deliver the black materia to Sephiroth's body in the Northern Crater. But how that goes down, the way it goes down is going to be vastly different. Like the events that build up to that and then the consequences of them are going to be so much more substantial. And based on what happens at the end of this game, they're setting this up to be way more dramatic. And it's already really dramatic. Like the majority of plot of Final Fantasy VII happens in that part of the game, on the way up to, the Northern Crater and what happens after. That's like the big plot of FF7. So they're pretty much setting that up and then amplifying it several times over. So I'm completely faithful that, like, yeah, I still think we're going to get Bone Village. We're obviously going to get, all these other places. I think we're going to, a disappointing part of this game is that we don't really get to explore the City of the Ancients. We don't get to explore the Forgotten Capital.
That was,
but then I remember, oh, we're going back there, dude. We're going back there in the next game. We have to. That's the whole point of it. Like we don't explore that here. They keep the pacing of like, we got a blitzkrieg to save her. But yeah, there's a big giant part of the next game where we need to go back.
Do you think they'll do something insane where we go to Zach's timeline or like go to another timeline as the core party?
I don't think so. Okay. I think they'll get visions of it because ultimately the conclusions of this game is that majority of those are now gone. Yeah. The reunion has changed, right? The Sephiroth's ambitions have changed since the first one. The convergence has happened, but it is, as he explains, the convergence of all these realities coming together as one. There's a reason why Sephiroth is doing this. Sephiroth found a way to weaponize pain. He found a way to, like, the only time Sephiroth is powerful, he explains this, is when people are going through despair. So the goddamn famous line, "Shall I give you despair?" That's coming around now. He found a way to weaponize people's, like, the feelings of loss and anger and hatred is what he needs. And that's why all the other universes seemingly are going through like the worst shit ever. He's turning all the other multiverses into like the worst fucking place so he can become a god.
He's Majora's Mask. He's the like possessed skull kid trying to like wreak despair and hate on everybody so he can crash the moon down and like win.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, like now Sephiroth's getting to a point where he has this obvious hyper awareness of everything. He's omniscient, I think is the appropriate word, of all these different situations, and it's all coming to a head. And that's the point of the end of the game, is that I'm going to put all of our characters in the spot that they feel the most pain. And it's not just our main party, it's also all the other main parties that exist in all the other timelines are going to siphon into this one spot, and he's going to fucking become a god.
Yeah. Like him trying to make convergence and get all this stuff, like it's going to be very interesting, like where it goes. And I mean, there's a lot of questions about like who is who in some scenes. Like they do it, they do a good job of like putting some identifiers, I will say. But this gets me to the point about some
intentionally confusing.
Okay, confusion. That's where I want to start here for like probably the biggest point. The thing that everyone wants to know your thoughts on is the Aerith death scene, or how it played out in this game. Both of you, Huber, I haven't even heard you, because I will say I didn't fully understand what I was seeing and needed time to process. Knowing what I know now, it makes more sense and I understand it, but it completely killed any emotional attachment to the moment.
100%.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. That's all I wanted to know. I agree with you. My first reaction to it, you know what the actual Aerith death scene is? When she and Cloud are on the date, and he gives her the white, she gives him the white materia and says goodbye. And Sephiroth walks through the door, and it's like, oh Jesus, that had the emotional weight of like an Aerith death scene, where it's like, wait a minute, are you telling me that Sephiroth is going through all the timelines and fucking murdering her? Like that's what he's doing throughout all of the timelines. He's just hunting her down. Like, whoa, that's dark as shit. And because he literally says like, oh, I found you. You're in that world that has accepted its fate. Yeah. Like, and she's like, crap, I'm running out of time. Yeah. So I'm like, whoa, this is really cool. And its conclusion is amazing. I'm like, that had the emotional resonance, because ultimately the actual Aerith death scene, as we are in, mad spoilers now, lacks that because it builds confusion. It's intentionally building confusion. They give you so much information, and then it builds up to that point, and then the scene doesn't play out the way you think it does, but then it does, but then it doesn't. Like it's like on review now, I get to go watch it several times later, and it actually is really emotionally resonant. But on first playthrough, I'm just kind of like,
yeah,
okay, yeah.
Because I'm usually not.
Wait a minute, is she alive?
Yeah.
Wait a minute, they keep her alive? Now we're fighting with her. She's okay. That was my impression. My impression is that they actually did it. They actually kept her alive. So, like, wow. Like, yeah, we lost the emotional resonance of it, because on first viewing, you think you changed destiny.
It was just so much the process that my mind was trying to like solve stuff. I'm like, I want to know what I'm actually seeing, so I can't my emotions just aren't processing right now. They're like on the back burner in my like processing queue, and like I felt bad. Yeah,
go up. So you almost intentionally feel bad. So here's where I'm going to get into what I call the meta. There was obviously a meta commentary throughout the original remake, all over the place. The whispers are like the fans, the purist fans trying to keep things this way. There's a lot of like meta commentary about the developers, the challenges of recreating something that's so beloved. That was definitely there. I don't think that went away in this game. The problem is they save it for the very end, just similar to like remake, where it's kind of hard to gather this shit. I think there's a meta commentary here of the perception of what people wanted. What did they set up from the previous game? What was the whole point of like the ending of Final Fantasy VII Remake happening the way it did? You can save her. That's like the whole point.
Yeah, it's like the 5 fate. It's like, why are you doing future. This? Yeah,
exactly. There's an unknown future going ahead.
Game, we were like, oh, are we going to choose who dies?
It's the ultimate question. It's the biggest question. The whole point is that, oh yeah, we're setting up this multiple timeline stuff so that we can save her. It was my early impression, like from the end of that game, that's okay. So that seems like that's the point. They want you to feel like you can save her so they can steal that from you. But as you watch the ending of this game, you save her. You fucking do it, man. Like you reflect the attack and all that shit. I'm like, wow, that's crazy. We're going in this direction. And on like first viewing, she wakes up and shit. She goes like, don't worry. You know, you're like, oh, okay, I got this, babe. Let's do this. So it's like, wow, we're really doing this. All right, that's nuts. I feel like us as fans are being put in Cloud's position. That's like the meta, is that we're going through what like Cloud is kind of going through, because she's clearly not alive. She's after watching it like several times, she's clearly not alive, even if you start looking at the perspective of other characters and stuff. And it's the whole point. If people may not be paying attention to what Sephiroth says right after he kills her, she's dead, dude.
Yeah, and Cloud has been tripping out this entire game, dude. Yeah. Cloud is like out of his mind, so that makes perfect sense.
So yeah, I feel like they're juggling a lot here, and I agree with you. Like they're doing a lot of this to play with player expectation. Unreliable narrator Cloud is
hard on
even what
now.
We're seeing even real. Like we have to also like question what we're seeing, but also as you pointed out, Max, Sephiroth got the black materia, found it the true one, activated it, and began the convergence of realities. And is what we're seeing from that point on a byproduct of realities colliding? Because in that sequence with Cloud going through like the space between realities and seeing like realities merging and like stars like going to a black hole,
Final
like that
destination.
Yeah, like stuff like that. Are we seeing the byproduct of that? And is like what Cloud's seeing is like he's seeing different timelines and possibilities because of what has happened. Because the trigger, I feel like, is that rainbow effect whenever someone makes a decision and creates another branching path. Because the Zack stuff, so I've seen so many videos, and I thought at the same time too. Like, so a lot of people are thinking this
argument
that there are three different Zack perspectives in the Zack timeline.
Oh yeah,
like here's the one where he stays outside the church, one where he goes to the Shinra headquarters, one where he goes to save Biggs, and it's like they're showing you that like this is true. You make choices, you create other branching realities. But now that they're all coming back together, how can you tell the difference? And is that what's going on? Because in that sequence, the distortion effect that everyone thinks is like Genova and fake memories, is that actually reality? Cloud confusing perception of reality because he has the ability to sense that for various reasons, along with like
and you start to wonder. So how much is this Cloud in Cloud's head? How much of it is the live stream talking to him? Is it Genova? Like you don't know. There's clear confusion that they're trying to build here. I think there's a very important storytelling thing, because all of this stuff will come around. It came around in this game of the way characters say about shit. They are very intentional. This is the 30-year cook, man. And I tell you, this is the 30-year cook because in cursing because I get aggressive about this in the OG FF7 in the mind palace part of the game where Tifa has to save Cloud from his mind prison. The tear is in the background. The weird universe terror is in the background.
Image, yeah.
That's where that image comes from. It comes from that. So it's like, oh, okay. So they're utilizing that imagery. They're clearly thinking about this. Going back to like the universe and timeline stuff, because the game starts proposing pretty nutty ideas that like you come across Zack, who's clearly in one timeline. And it's like, okay, so this is our Zack. He got moved to someplace else. He's also in a place that has converged. a universe has already converged and it's on the brink of death. Why? Well, because the Biggs from that universe and the Marlene from that universe are seemingly our Biggs and our Marlene. Seemingly, they have the information from Aerith that we saw in Remake, and Biggs nodes Cloud. So he's in the wrong place. Like, things are messed up there. What's going to happen to that place? We don't know, right? We don't know what's going to happen to those characters. But then they also start proposing through the information of dogs that there's a lot of other Zacks. There's a lot of other universes. There's a lot of other Clouds in, wheelchairs, like, completely bereft. There's Barista Cloud, right? This is what I always say. There's like the alternate versions of our characters and Sephiroth says the same thing. There's like infinite of them. They're all over the place. So the game shows us like 7, but just assume they're countless. So it's now we're thinking about numbers so big that it doesn't make any sense. It's just infinite possibilities type shit. Okay, it's the live stream. It's wild. The whole point of the game is that he's converging it all. He's bringing it all together. Why is he bringing it all together? Because all that hatred and sadness is spread apart right now. It's spread apart in all these worlds that are like, split into many different live stream worlds. So he needs it all to come into one spot. He needs to like siphon it to one area to become the most powerful.
Which I think is such a cool way to handle a multiverse. Because for me, you can lose a lot of like emotional stakes
100%
with a multiverse, but the way they have set up, obviously it goes back to the live stream and all that, and just the convergence and the way that even like multiple people are interacting with other universes. Like I think the premise of that is just super cool.
It is, and that's the problem with multiverse stories that I personally have felt, is that a lot of them, it's the emotional impact is sort of lost just because they're just fine over there.
Like you were saying, Sephiroth, like just hunting down Aeriths in like all the timelines. Like
he's going through the timelines looking for her.
Yeah, it's such a cool way to connect it all.
There's also the cool beats where it's like the white materia doesn't exist in every timeline. The black materia also doesn't exist in every timeline. Sephiroth gets the key to the black materia. He does not get it at Temple of the Ancients. It shows him where it is. He activates the key. It opens up like a dimensional portal, and he sends all of his bullshit whispers to go find it. And they do. They bring it back to him, but he can't do anything with it. It literally falls through his hands because he needs like somebody from like this world to give it to him for some reason, right? Cloud has to deliver it to him in some way. Yeah. But it also isn't the like same black materia we know. It's one that is to cause a convergence. It causes the worlds to come together. So it's like, oh, this is much different than the original game. Whether or not we get the black materia that does Meteor and all that stuff, we actually don't know. Like we really don't have, we know what it does, what it's supposed to do, but as Sephiroth is explaining to us, this black materia does some crazy different shit.
Yeah. I wasn't like fully convinced that there's not a white materia, and I mean maybe no longer, but I think there was always probably a white materia wholly in each reality, because my take on it was that they lost the white materia, it became clear materia, and Aerith being able to communicate with like another version of herself in like in the other timeline needed to give it to Cloud to bring back, because she has it in the Rebirth timeline to pray again. Like she has what the holy materia, but like it was gone. It's kind of like Infinity War when they need the one time stone. It's like they've literally lifted that plot point. Yeah.
So I'd like to propose a weird idea here. I don't think this white materia is the same as the old white materia. I don't think it does the same thing. Sephiroth wants Aerith to pray. He wants you to call holy. Yeah. That's weird. Why does he want that? He literally says, yeah, pray. You keep doing that. I'm going to keep him out here. So, whoa, that's different. Why is that? Well, we are proposed the idea that the white materia is like all the thoughts and memories super valuable to Aerith. Pretty much, we can all acknowledge the existence of Omni Aerith, right? With the most OP character in this whole fucking game. She's so overpowered. She has 17 Game Shark codes. She's got the full Brady game strategy guide. She can wall hack. Sephiroth literally calls her out on bullshit. He's like, that's not fair. There's literally a moment where she gives Cloud the white materia through timelines, takes physical matter from one place to a complete other existence. And Sephiroth looks at it and is like, bitch, what? he goes, that's a bad play. He says something along those lines where he's like, you know, that's not allowed. Are you kidding me?
Very poor
that's
form.
poor form. So there is, I'm like, whoa, that's an interesting line. There's a power struggle between Omni Aerith and Omni Sephiroth, the ones that are like hyper aware of all this. So Omni Aerith, we are seemingly aware that the white materia she has is a hyper awareness, is the one that is like aware of all the other Aeriths and all the other timelines and all this shit, is one that is like essentially the Aerith that's from the live stream, you know, one that might be from the future or some shit, right? Because again, that's something that isn't confirmed yet, but seemingly is like, oh yeah, these characters are from the fucking future, bro. So again, that is our white materia in this. It's an awareness of like everything and where this is going to save the world. Similar to what Shinra guys say, I think we should think bigger about this. I don't think Meteor is the actual threat.
Oh no,
I don't think it's actually Meteor. I think it's going to be there, but the real threat is something much larger. Is a Sephiroth that is controlling like all of these timelines, these convergences and shit. So we don't. The black materia changed where now it's like bringing together timelines and stuff, and also potentially casting Meteor. The white materia now also isn't just bringing Holy to blow up a big rock in the sky. No, I think this white materia does something much bigger. It does something that is like to save the fucking universe or some shit like that.
Don't let Hojo get his grubby little hands on
definitely
that.
Yes, exactly.
That would be bad.
I think the line that was telling Max was when in the Temple of the Ancients, when he says forever, and it was a different possessed Aerith who says there's no such thing as forever, and he goes, there will be.
Omni Aerith shows up.
Yeah, and it's like he clearly, just like Hojo, has bigger ambitions. It's not, he doesn't want control. Like even Cloud's like misunderstanding. He keeps saying, "Oh, Sephiroth wants to control the world," you know.
No, he doesn't.
And it's like, no, he wants more than that. And like
he wants way more. Yeah, this isn't about Meteor anymore. Meteor's still going to happen because our timeline is still going to follow the events, right? But Sephiroth's actual intentions in this one, I think we have to refer them to him as Infinity Sephiroth. He talks about this in Temple of the Ancients, where he wants to control like all of existence. He wants to control time and existence and things way beyond our planet. He wants to control all of energy and life. In the OG game, he literally wants to girdle a damage point of the planet to go from planet to planet to planet and like take the life force of them, similar to how the way he does ours. So it's like, okay, so that's OG Sephiroth's intention. This one is not that. This one like wants to take over all of existence. He wants to become not just a god of the planet. He wants to become the god, the all of everything type shit.
Yeah, and I think the reason the converges all this, he's gained this knowledge because the original reunion was, reunite all Genova cells and reform. It's like even like up through Advent showing like the remnants. Oh, you missed some of them. We got to get more of them. That's how we truly do this. But it's like now he's discovered, or Genova has discovered, part of me is scattered in other timelines and realities. Like to actually achieve this, we need to reunify everything together so I actually can come back together, because it's impossible just in the way you were trying to do it. My question to you, Max, is if you ever thought about this, like, where did this begin? Like, where is it? Like, when did Genova become aware and like send future Sephiroth knowledge? Like, how?
That's part 3 shit.
Was it Advent? No, I mean, like in the OG timeline, what triggered the effect? Because everyone says, you defied fate at the end of Remake. How did anyone know to do that? Why were the Whispers even activated? What triggered that stuff to begin with? Was it like something in Advent Children? Was it like the final defeat of Sephiroth at the end of that? And it's like Genoa's like, all right, this is never going to work this way. Was it something else? Was it Aerith being returned to the...
Dude, come on,
what?
There's
a lot of like lore stuff that talk about like Aerith and
I was gonna say
Sephiroth's,
it was Aerith for sure.
It's Aerith and Sephiroth's existence beyond their physical forms, like in the live stream type of shit, like how Sephiroth exists in the live stream, which probably will get very spoilery. If you want to read to be honest, if you want to read some of the other like Nojima like texts and novellas and all that kind of stuff that exist, there's a lot of stuff that will probably break down the exact intentions of how our characters become and have an awareness of what's happening. But yes, like I still am under the impression that this is, I mean, dude, she has straight lines and scenes right from Advent Children. Like Aerith has like moments. The part where she assists you in fighting Sephiroth is just like an Advent Children moment where I'm like, whoa, what the heck? This is very similar. And Sephiroth clearly like is aware that like, this doesn't work out for me. Let's change that. Like, let's see how we can change that. So we
And how
don't.
they messed with like Crisis Core at Nibelheim and all that.
Again,
Was
yes, I know.
so
Well,
weird.
that gets into like the unreliable narrator and expectations. Like for some reason, they wanted us to watch Advent Children. They wanted us to watch Crisis Core. These movies spoil the shit. These movies and games spoil the shit out of the main theme of Final Fantasy VII. They do. I was shocked that, like, why do you want us to play Crisis Core? Isn't that the point of the next games? Isn't that the point? Why are we doing this? Why do you want us to watch Advent Children? This is after all this stuff. There's a good reason, and we don't have that reason in this game. It shows up in the next game. There's going to be like the developers literally say at the beginning of Advent Children in the theaters, we wanted to create a game that puts everything together. That takes all of the FF7 lore and puts it into one story, one big final story.
Dude, I need Cloud, Zack, and Angeal 3 Buster Swords. Let's go.
Yeah, like there's I think we're setting up some again, just mad spoilers here. I thought the finality, like we talked about this before, the finality of this story, in my opinion, was that all of this timeline shit, which was not confirmed until the end of this game 4 years ago, we're like, dude, the whole point of this story is that we're gonna get Cloud and Zack together. Bros are gonna beat the shit out of this dickhead. That is gonna be that's where this story is going to conclude. That's the point of all this timeline shit. We just got to get Zack to come back in some way. And it's like, yeah, that's going to be the end of the third game. That'll be the sickest ending ever. It happens in this game. Wait, we already do that.
It was so awesome.
Wait a minute, that it happens here? We're doing this now?
Yeah.
So that was truly shocking to me, that we're setting up for something even crazier than what our tiny level 4 brains were ready for in a part 2. So part 3 is going to be fucking wild. And again, we're really setting up for how wild it is with this unreliable narrator stuff. Because as much as it felt like we were being spoiled, and you're just like ruining this for your audience, for the people that don't know this, why are you telling us Crisis Core stuff? Why are you telling us Advent Children stuff? This is like ruining the story of FF7. Oh, wait. And it takes until the final moments of the game, in my opinion, where they really start hammering down what is effectively the unreliable narrator of this game. And I think it's still sound. I think what they have built now is something that's way more intriguing.
Oh, yeah. I have definitely questions for you about the very, very end of this game and like what we're actually like seeing. But I have like some final questions about like the multiverse that we've been talking about and like all these different dimensions. I want to know how far down the rabbit hole you think we're going, because we've talked about 7 realities and timelines, but it's hard to overlook that there are several references in these games that might open up
every single Final Fantasy.
So have you done you've done all the Gilgamesh stuff, right?
Yes.
And you saw how he says, "Oh, I'm from another dimension, and now I gotta get
fight
back.
the other warriors of light."
Now, this is a Gilgamesh trope. He has done this before. It's not unique, but he is very specific. The timing and specificness of his lines make it feel like, okay, maybe there's a little bit more to that. We have the Shinra picture and remake, the Final Fantasy X Shinra.
Yeah.
We have Crazy Chocobo from Final Fantasy 13 to play during one of the Chocobo races in this. Yeah. Do you think they might possibly just blow this open and do something insane like that, or do you think
are they gonna
try and connect Final
it?
Fantasy, all of them together, and be insane, or are they just gonna keep it to Final Fantasy VII?
So that's Disney wishing it, right? That's what Disney Wish does. From what I understand, it like brings all of the Disney verses together, and it's like, I think that fucking sucks.
Yeah, that's what the reunion is. Reunion of worlds.
To me, having a shot. And here's where I think it like there's like a suspension of disbelief. You have a shot of Elena just straight eating Kingdom Hearts ice cream in this game.
Hell yeah, dude! Sea salt ice cream. Let's
go. She's just eating it, and it's like they show a shot of it. You literally have Cloud getting like Dark Knight FF14 shit in this game. You clearly have a play that is referencing Final Fantasy V or something like that, one I might not have played before. You know, there is references to almost all of them. There's little nods to like every fucking Final Fantasy game in the game. It's like a love letter. To me, it comes across as like a developer love letter to Final Fantasy instead of a timeline convergence of all the Final Fantasies. What I'm trying to tell you, Damiani, is that Jecht is going to jump out of a portal and help Cloud fight Sephiroth in the end.
Well, I mean, I was like, is part 3 just going to end with like Cloud stepping out of a portal and he sees other characters and it's the beginning of Dissidia? And it's like,
Yes.
there we go.
If that happens, I will eat my foot. I will chop off my foot and eat it live on stream and suffer the pain.
I know I always bring up Sora every chance I can get, but like, come on, like, there's precedent here. Cloud and Sephiroth are in the fucking game Kingdom Hearts, and they fight.
Yeah.
You could do something weird there. You could do something weird.
There's some crazy realizations. I start to big picture here, and I'm like, dude, why did they let us fight Sephiroth at the end of remake part 1? That's such a big, like, you know, spoilery bummer. Why are they doing it again here? And it's like, think about it, man. You actually don't fight human Sephiroth ever in a Final Fantasy game. Like in a traditional old school Final Fantasy game. Somewhat in the later ones, like Crisis Core, you do. But you don't get the traditional 1v1 versus human Sephiroth fight until Kingdom Hearts fucking 1. And then Kingdom Hearts 2, which is why, like, you know, I like those games. That's why I was into those games. But they, again, like, they're like, oh, we realize that in most of these FF7 games, we actually don't really have a lot of this. You pretty much fight crazy Sephiroth with, like, 30 wings and shit when he becomes of God. So it's like, oh, yeah, so they gave us that. They gave us, oh, now you get this. And at the end of it, this game, they one-up it again. They really one-up it. We're now... this is the expectations of part 3. We pretty much gave you 2/3 of the finale of OG FF7 at the end of this game.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what are we doing here? We're going this far? You're going this far? And with the many different boss fights, there's very few forms of Jenova and Sephiroth we haven't seen yet. So it's like, they're setting up part 3 to be different. They're like, oh shit. No. Part 3 is going to be getting, like, goddamn infinity Sephiroth. He's gonna get the power of infinite type shit. So we're gonna be seeing something way bigger than just the one-winged, like the one-winged heartless angel type shit.
Yeah, they've done so much crazy stuff in these first 2 games that at this point my expectations are that the first half of part 3 is like the events as we kind of know them, and then the next half is just like, what is even happening?
Yeah. Yeah, I feel they're still going to be traditional, but it's going to get absolutely nuts towards the end.
Yeah. Sorry, I had to get that in my system. I know it's goofy off the rails, but I wanted to ask that like fun thing. But I know it's not happening. But it's like, I like wacky chaos. I like Stranger in Paradise. I'm like, dude, like freaking Jack shows up in this. Like, yeah, let's go, Jack Garland. Like, let's go. I will like celebrate. Yeah? I will give part 3 a 10 on principle of Jack Garland.
Oh my god.
Yeah. So here's I would like to promote the one thing before we start to get into like finale predictions and stuff like that. They're setting up Cloud's Dark Knight arc in this in part 3.
I wanted to ask you about this. Yes.
So the story has changed. Cloud is now in full possession of the black materia, and he is hiding it from everybody. He's like
so sketch in this game.
He is the one ring like sort of situation right now where he is like, I can't tell anybody about this. You can't know about it type stuff. So it's like it's having its power on him in already a situation of Cloud losing it and at his brink, and like he's already super fucked up. There's a great line where it's like at the very end of the game. This is very intentional, I felt. Sid has this line as everyone's getting onto the ship where it's like, we have too much cargo, and Sid's like, yeah, well, no, like no more cargo. We're full to the brim as it is. And I'm like, dude, this is like referring to Cloud. Cloud is like dealing with so much more than he was in the OG game, and now he's hiding more stuff. Mm-hmm. They're setting up this Dark Knight arc in the next game where Cloud's going to be like seemingly twisted by this hidden black materia that he won't tell anybody about. And they already do it throughout this game. We already get abilities that seem very weird that are not really in line with Cloud, which is Prime mode. A crazy ass like Dark Knight mode that clearly references Final Fantasy XIV with the look of the weapon and all this shit. It's like the new Force Stealer. And we also get the dark side materia, which I'm like, I feel like these things Cloud is just going to have in the next game, and his gameplay is going to change. I feel like he is going to go through effectively a Spider-Man 2 situation where you start off like normal and you learn all this crazy evil bullshit on your way to, you know, the Northern Crater type of stuff. And Cloud's going to be like a vastly different character where you essentially get the symbiote abilities of this nutty ass black materia shit. So he's going to go on his Dark Knight arc. But that clearly sets up Cloud later on for his Paladin arc, right? Where he's going to turn all of these abilities, similar to how Spider-Man does. He turns the symbiote abilities into good guy stuff.
Is it going to climb a mountain and change to a Paladin?
something's going to happen.
Okay.
He has to have his Switch. He story-wise, he already has his Switch, right? Like that already happens in the OG FF7. All I'm saying is that you're going to have this Cloud's Dark Knight arc in the next game with new crazy abilities that he hasn't had. He's not going to be like the air combo guy. He's going to be a lot different in the next game, in my opinion.
Do you think they go so far as they like for part of the game he will be actively be more of like a villain character?
Yes,
okay.
I 100% think he is on like a weird ass dark path at the end of this game based on how the ending goes. And the ending is my first impression of the ending is like, oh, okay, I guess we're just on the way doing the exact same thing. You know, like there's multiple timelines. She's alive in one other timeline. This is my first impression. I guess we're doing that. And upon reviewing, this ending is dark as shit, dude. It's way more sad and depressing than I think most people are putting on. So
it ends with like jolly splash, like
it
splash
does.
screen rainbow. Bye, have fun on your next journey.
Have fun on your next journey. I'm like, yeah. This is considering what is leading up to this. This is very weirdly, and again, it could just be poor writing, right? I think the ending of this game could be a weird poor writing, but there are several anomalies and the ways characters are treating things that are like, whoa. Is this what you're insinuating over here?
Yeah. I have some questions about that last scene, if you're good.
Let's
or
get
do you
into
have
it.
more say?
Let's get into it.
I was taking some notes when I was playing this game, and my biggest note, literally, I wrote down, "Who the fuck is Glenn?"
Okay, I was gonna ask about that. That was my question. Okay, so
I didn't know either.
So Glenn
Who is this?
So
man?
in Rebirth, it's not the Glenn. I mean, Glenn is a character from First Soldier. There's also a Ultimania this thing about him that hints he might be more than just that, but I don't know if it's confirmed. But he's just a distraction. He is one of the hooded people that Sephiroth has sent to appear as Glenn to Rufus Shinra. Go ahead, Max. Go ahead.
But to add to you, yeah, it's intentionally confusing. Like, who is this guy? What is his intention? Why is he so weird and creepy? Why is it the first time we see him, we see the person he's talking to kill him? We literally watch Rufus shoot him in the back of the head.
Yeah.
This guy's dead. How is he talking to him? I don't. It's intentionally very weird and misleading and confusing, like a lot of the game can be. So ultimately, the only way you learn about his backstory, which is like, oh, he's an ex-soldier that defected to Wutai and started a resistance. Like, okay, and Yuffie explains that in a side quest, I believe. There's some things where they get into that backstory a bit. So you're like, oh, okay, he's this dude. But wait a minute. He dies. So why is he still? There's an air of mystery about it, but you understand what he is by the end of the game, right?
I mean, it was like clearly a vision from Sephiroth, like one of the
you remember like Jenova will take the
the
appearance or whatever. Like it's just deceptive to manipulate him, and Rufus guessed
just
it.
a manipulation.
Remind me about that. The timing of that scene is very important, in my opinion. What they start alluding to and where that scene pops up in relation to our other characters is also really important. But what they're setting up is that Sephiroth started a war. Sephiroth intentionally manipulated Rufus to begin a war with Wutai, whether or not it's to distract them from whatever Sephiroth is doing, or to put our planet, our world, in as much pain and suffering as possible. Because clearly in our world, we're cool, bro. Like, there's no crazy bullshit in the sky, unlike all the other ones we've seen where everyone is like suffering. Like, majority of them are going through convergence and bad shit is about to happen. But our world is seemingly fine. So what does Sephiroth need to do in our world? Well, we need to cause as much pain, death, and suffering as possible. I need that. So it's like, oh, so Sephiroth is gathering energy for some wild shit here. He needs to start a war. He needs to put this planet in the worst position it could possibly be before really bad shit goes down. I
also, given that Sephiroth probably has the future knowledge, Rufus Shinra is instrumental in assisting Cloud in the OG game and in Advent Children in leading to the overall defeat of Jenova / Sephiroth.
Rufus overall is a good guy. Like he's the worst kind of good guy you can have, but really he's a net positive for the party to accomplish objectives, you know? So yes, he's working, he knows this. Sephiroth has watched Advent Children. He went to the theaters a few weeks ago. So he's like, hey, this bitch does not work with me. He's against me kind of thing, right? He's sucking the energy from the planet, which is good, but at the same point, he's also, gonna not be helping us out here.
Yeah. I do want to say though, the one wild card here is that there are like some people starting to say, based on like I guess the ultimate description, that there's a possibility, unless it's a mistranslation or something, that Glenn might have possibly be Cloud's father or some shit. I don't know
What
if they're
the
gonna.
fuck?
I don't know if they're gonna pull some like Luke, I'm your father shit in part 3. I don't think that's right, but I read that. I'm like, I don't know if that's right, but that would be so hilarious. Max, I think I told Simmons I read that, and he was like, "What the fuck, dude? I will stop playing the game if that's true."
That would be the most out of left field shit I have ever heard. If that's like a major plot point in the next game, that is so out of left field. It would literally make my head spin.
Because the line he says to Rufus, it might not be for Rufus. It says the son completing the work of the father. Is it really being directed at Rufus, or if it was Glenn was Cloud's father?
They're talking about the promised land, bro. What the fuck? No, I'm not with you on that one.
I don't buy it either, dude. I wanted to bring it up because it's hilarious. I thought it was funny.
Hilarious.
But Square Enix does like to troll a lot, so I was like,
I
could see them trolling a little bit and having some fun with this, but. And
we're going to talk about the we're getting into the what's it called right now, the eventual, and we're going to start getting into ending stuff pretty deep. I'm going to use the restroom. You got to give me a second. I just like been chugging down. I'm going to be right back.
Go ahead.
Same. I've had so much coffee, dude. Fill the dead air, Damian.
Good little break.
Fill it.
Yeah, I was reading this chat. I was reading this, and I think like Simmons was already asking me about ending stuff, and we were basically talking about the Aerith death scene, how we kind of like didn't feel any emotion towards it because we were still trying to figure out what was going on. And I like literally typed what I was reading from this thing, and he was like, dude, that's fucking just horrible. Like, please don't let that be true. He was like, he's typing laughing, but I know Simmons, he's probably just like laughing, like his laugh, like, like that. He was totally like going nuts about how stupid it was. And I was like, yeah, it is probably not true. He does look like it, but like I don't think that's it. I don't think we'll ever find out who Cloud's father is in this, or it's going to be a big deal. I really believe it was just like it was a mind game with Rufus. He thought that Glenn was dead. He knows something's up, so it's like keeping Rufus guessing about what his true motive is, and he discerns it by the end. He's like, You're not really Glenn. I know you're like distracting me. You're like working with Sephiroth, or you're Sephiroth, an extension of Sephiroth. And like the raw emotion Rufus showed though, when he kept shooting him, you could tell Rufus was like angry, like viscerally
was pissed.
Angry.
He knew he was being manipulated.
That he got manipulated. He was like, oh hell no. Like that was, I think that was a really good scene for that to show.
I thought it was good. It eventually it also added some really cool agency to the big reveal that's going to happen in part 3. This is a massive spoiler for anybody that has like not kept up with FF7 shit. I'm not the ultimate FF7 lore master in any way, but there is a little thing that popped up in a phone game that, spoiler alert, Rufus Shinra made Avalanche.
Oh yeah,
Rufus Shinra created the Avalanche to kill his father, type of stuff, so he can take over the company, type shit. So that's eventually going to come around. It's the reason why our party became so like secular from the main HQ, where they were always curious, why is HQ acting so weird all of a sudden? We want to bomb reactors. What's up, bro? Why is HQ telling us we shouldn't do this? We're doing this. So they disjoint themselves from them. Well, the reason HQ is like, don't blow up our reactors because those are our reactors.
Yeah.
Like, please stop doing that. So anyway, there's going to be a lot of that crazy stuff that happens in the next game outside of like the Wu-Tai War and shit.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Can we briefly talk about Dine?
Oh yeah, go ahead.
I loved this.
Okay,
I loved this arc.
Go ahead,
I liked it a lot.
Go ahead, you two. I know you have different opinions on this.
So I liked the Dine scene a lot. I thought it was really good and expanded. Like it presented it in a different way. But I'm gonna be a purist in this situation.
Sure,
I kind of like the simplicity of the original, in the same way that I kind of like the simplicity and the almost like awkward abruptness of Zack's death in the original compared to his big heroic thing, right? That's the big thing, that's that they try to elevate moments. They really try to like bring and elevate moments. And I think they did a pretty good job with the Dine one. Much less even the Zack stuff later on in Crisis Core and shit. But at the same point, there's something about it that enjoys like the simplicity. Oh, Zack just got shot in the back. Like, he just got killed. Yeah. And then Cloud just found his body. Like, oh, that's dark.
Down.
It's just gunned down, like unceremoniously gunned down, in the same way that like Dine comes to a realization: I've killed so many people. How am I supposed to hold my daughter? And like I'm going back. I'm done. And he just kills himself. He just jumps off a cliff. Like I almost kind of like appreciate like the fact that Barrett has to like hold that, and he just doesn't get any closure. But they really like hammer home the Barrett part of it now, where it's like, oh no, Barrett, you have to hold this weight even more than before now.
Yeah. Just really, I enjoyed how like gritty it was. Final Fantasy VII is pretty gritty, pretty dark.
Yeah.
But some of these scenes with Dine just like shooting people up, and like how they really did a good job of showing how far he was gone.
Yes.
So
I liked it. I still thought it was really good. It was the again, there's some parts in like OG FF7 that I won't be an ultra remake stan. I do like some parts in the old in the old game, like a little bit more because of the sort of simplified storytelling, the more of a I'd say an impression that you have to come up with this instead of like the game obviously showing you a lot in this one.
Okay.
I also really liked Elena.
Oh yeah,
she's great.
Heck yeah,
she's
awesome.
She's so snarky, dude. I love her.
Her and Yuffie need to hang out at some point. Like they need to become friends, man.
Yes, dude.
Another Yuffie thing as we're getting into the ending. Have you noticed that Yuffie has an arc in this game? She's straight. Her whole
she's
character,
the heart of the party, dude. The heart of the party.
Her whole character is this snobby teenager that just wants materia and is on for the ride just for her own personal interests. By the end of the game, she's like, she has completely forgotten about the black materia. We have to save Aerith. We need to save Aerith. Like Yuffie she's down there. Let's go. Good. Like she's so good. Like every character gets this wonderful arc in this game. I love it.
And she has so, because her and Barrett start like at odds or whatever, but then there's so many moments in the background when they're like palling around. Oh, it's so good.
Yeah. There's the wonderful stuff that they do with like character dynamics in this, where they force, because the buddy cops in this game are in remake as well, are Red 13 and Barrett. They're the buddy cops. They're like the Murtaugh Riggs. So what do? They stick them together to go into Cave of the Gi. You don't have an option. So at the end of that, Barrett's the only one that learns about Red 13's like true nature. He never calls him Red 13 anymore. He only calls him Nanaki. He never refers to him as Red. He just calls him Nanaki. I'm like, that's so cool, dude. Yeah. This is so wonderful.
Gosh. And then shout out to the I think it was a side quest, the bar scene.
Oh, the proto relic in Cosmo Canyon.
Yep. The seventh. What happened with callback, the avalanche dude getting the salt for the martini or whatever.
I loved it.
Incredible.
Oh my gosh, that was so good. And then the play payoff.
The quality of like just random things that you can run into that call back and reference and bring all characters together again is insane. Like I could not believe when we're just gushing before we get into the grim reality that is the ending of this game. And I think this is all intentional, because shit is about to hit the fan really hard. They did a very good job at creating a world that they want you to love. They want you to love the characters in this world. They want you to love all the places you go to. All games want to do this, but this game tries really hard, because the world of FF7 means a lot to more people than most games do. So they try their best to put like the bald bar, to put like the squad that you were with, to put the drink guy, to give the guy that was SSL while he does fucking like card game shit. I'm like, dude, there's so much personality in this world. They're trying to create a world that you love, so that eventually when it gets taken away, you want to fight for it.
Yep.
But that is the cool part of this game that I fucking love. It's like I love this shit, man. I think they're doing such a good job.
Yeah, the stakes are so high because we care so deeply.
Yeah,
I saw this mentioned in chat. I think we didn't talk about this part real quick. The scene, the fake out with Cloud and Tifa, where Cloud thinks Tifa's not real in the reactor in
the Genova thing.
Yeah, and then her in the live stream. Like the whole sequence with her in there. Yeah, what'd you think about that?
So let's get into the talk of Cloud as an unreliable narrator, because they seemingly stole from us several plot points that lead to Cloud being the unreliable narrator by releasing Crisis Core and Advent Children and being like, hey, go watch this shit. Okay, so we just know stuff now. And then also giving the mind prison scene to Tifa in this game. That also has some big Cloud reveals where it's like, oh, okay, so we're doing this now? oh, that's very different. And I loved it. Number one, I loved it. It also shows like the importance of Tifa in the story in general, that she now also has like a connection to like the live stream byproduct in some way. Now she's like been down there and she didn't die. It literally like saved her from dying type of stuff. So I thought it was really cool. And it also insinuates, oh, we're setting up for something even bigger in the next game. Okay. So the reveal of like the Zack Cloud story is still kind of there. I love what they did in Nibelheim, by the way, where Cloud literally remembers his friend Zack. How did I forget him? He died out here. How did I forget him? Like that kind of shit I thought was wonderful. And they also set up the complete loss of Cloud as a character, where he's just questioning every reality. He thinks he's literally like dying from Mako cancer type shit. And then he's also doesn't realize that he's like 3 different people in there type of shit, and is also being manipulated by Sephiroth at every witch turn. Cloud is at the brim, and they did a great job where you get moments of this game where you see him shine a little bit, and then you also see how dark it gets, where he's like, will you shut up? Like to Aerith being the sweetest she possibly can. We're like, are you done talking?
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, this is
punished Cloud in this game.
It's brutal. So I think they did an amazing job balancing those elements.
Yeah, really well done. Like, it's scary, and like when we talked about earlier that he might even go beyond that in part 3. It's like,
oh yes,
be prepared.
so let's talk. Let's just get into it. Why is he going to be so long gone in part 3? Let's talk about Aerith's death. Quote unquote death, because quote unquote, right? That's the impression. The first impression is that she's alive. Okay, so you somewhere.
Yeah, you both were like convinced that he's like Cloud is messed up and that she really died in that scene. Is that what you're saying?
Because I'm saying the first. So. I'm saying the first impression
on that scene at all.
Okay, I'm saying my initial read on that scene was yes, she's alive. Or she's alive somewhere.
Yeah.
She's alive somehow. Like her existence is more than it was before, because let's be honest, Aerith doesn't really die in FF7. There's an implication that she's like working magic in the background that like Holy could only be cast from inside the live stream, which is why she eventually dies type of stuff, right? So like her and Zack, their existence sort of like, even in Advent Children, they reference this. They sort of are alive, but they're just not there. Aerith literally talks to Cloud in Advent Children and shit. So it's like, that kind of like, there's a spirit reference there that they live in their spirit. But in this one, it's a bit different. She's like walking around and talking to Cloud. Like she's an accompanying party member that, some other characters may or may not be aware of her presence type shit.
Yeah.
So I'm curious because I think me and Huber are on the same boat.
Sure.
I initially thought, oh, there's a lot of timeline stuff happening. So she's alive somewhere. The party's doing something with her completely alive. We're going to be playing that. That's how they're going to keep her alive. That was my impression for a while. About hour 1 or 2, I felt that way. And is that the way you still kind of feel about it, Damiani?
I mean, I still think it's like I still think it's like timeline stuff going on and Cloud. Yes. So I also have a belief, like honestly, I could see it going either way. Like it could totally be that like, yeah, she died. Cloud's unreliable. He's like, it's the soldier degradation. He's falling apart and he's just talking to a spirit or something like that. And it could fully be that or something along that lines. Yes. I'm also not fully convinced that all the so-called Genova distortions are happening the same reason they happen in OG. That it's just like Cloud's being influenced by Sephiroth. Obviously, there is the puppet stuff that is going on, but you notice other people have the same distortion effect. Tifa has it, Aerith has it, Rufus Shinra has it. I think it's more. I think Square Enix is messing with us. That a lot of it's happening due to the convergent stuff. That people are remembering other realities. So it is still false memories, but it's not. I have Zack's memories. It's not just that. It's like I have memories of other events that didn't happen, but they did happen somewhere else. I think that's what's going on in that moment. Like now that I've seen it multiple times, Cloud is just not able to process. He's having a hard time telling which reality he's seeing. He is seeing different versions play out because of his exposure to Sephiroth's reveal about in the singularity area. And you have my blessing. That blessing is you can now perceive multiple realities, just like Aerith, just like I can. Yeah, you can see more things now, and it's gonna fuck with you because this is my end game. I want you to be like, it's not just like my puppet stuff. you're just gonna go insane, not being able to handle this, and this is how I beat you. This is how you lose.
They're setting up Cloud to be the most vulnerable he's ever been. He's gonna be so messed up. But yes, characters do get weird visions. Like Aerith literally does it to Marlene in Red 13 until the planet takes that shit away. They're like, hey, stop that. Cloud literally gets weird visions of other timeline stuff, the past, seemingly another world where Aerith died, and he like feels that for a moment and it's gone, right? That kind of stuff, right? Visions in the whispers type stuff. But ultimately, I do agree with the interpretation, what happens in the end, because it's intentionally very confusing. Like the little like rainbow effect seems to be a reference of like things are changing. There's a split here. There is an event that happened, and an event that's also not happening or is happening. It is changing in several ways, and we also see that from Tifa's perspective, where she sees Aerith dying in a variety of ways, where she's like bleeding in some parts, and other parts she's not, but she's still seemingly like in the same physical state, like she's dead. So I think there's a lot. It's intentionally confusing, and I think it's almost intentionally confusing at the wrong part. I think it does it almost too hard there, because we're almost so confused that we're not really gathering the fact that we're like, oh, is she dead? We don't really know.
Yeah, I almost wish it would have played out normally. Like, we saved her, gone a little bit further, and like Tifa and the group show up and they start screaming and crying, and you look back and like, why are they crying and shit? Like, yeah, I just wanted to have that moment confusing. Breathe a little bit, where I can feel that, excitement. I did it. I get to like enjoy this, not so quickly have that whiplash. The whiplash happened too quickly.
It was very whiplash.
This game's ending. I'm gonna say it right now. The ending conclusion of this game, outside of the amazing fights and like Zack stuff and like, wow, this is so cool. Loved that. But I'm gonna be real. I wasn't super hot on this game's ending on first view. I was just like sort of confused and upset that they treated it that way. In the exact same way I felt about the ending of Final Fantasy VII Remake. My emotional state was the same, where I'm like, yeah, I don't know about this and where they're going with it. I really don't know. It wasn't until the same shit happened when I have my chat and they start showing me shit. They're like, hey, check this out, and look at this, and look at this, and then you start to get to put these pieces together, and then you start watching scenes with new context. You start watching parts from earlier in the game with new context. Things characters say are way more important. The shit Aerith tells you in Temple of the Ancients after she goes through her trial literally directly explains how Sephiroth is gaining power and how I don't want to do that. Like, that's not what we should do. Like, this is the way that I would do it. And Cloud's like, shut up. And then the scene is over. So it's like, oh, okay. They're explaining how Aerith is going to make this work. The game's ending completely changes. It turns into something that you kind of come across as like, oh, this is sort of like a happy-go-lucky like thing. Aerith might be alive and our adventure is going to happen here, but maybe there's multiple other adventures happening. I do not feel that way at all after reviewing it quite a bit.
Yeah, it's very like depressing, because the weight of being able to process the emotions of everyone else. Everyone else is just like wrecked. And Cloud, and the reality that like, even if Cloud, what he's seeing is real, they don't see it. And like, to him, he's coming off as like, you're a psychopath. Like, are you like a sociopath? Like, how the hell are you acting like this?
Even if Cloud is getting like visions of other timelines or stuff that happens, right? You also have to understand what they were doing storytelling wise. They were promoting the idea that there's other realities. There's other realities where she lives, bro. There is. That's what they're trying to tell you. That's what they're trying to set up for as you're going through this. There's realities where the team is just happy and you're just going and doing stuff. There's also realities where things are going to go fucking south and she's going to be dead. So they also present the idea that there's like infinite of these things. You get to see 7 different dogs. We could keep showing you dogs, man. There's a lot of dogs. Okay,
how many breeds of dogs are there? Yeah,
we can put 30 different dogs to keep doing this. But do we need to do that? I think you get the idea that there are so many of these things that it doesn't really matter how many other timelines there are anymore. It doesn't really matter.
I agree.
They and Sephiroth says it that like, yeah, these timelines just come and go, bro. You don't need to cry about them. They just go away. They return to the live stream. They converge, they do all this stuff. You don't need to worry about it. What's important is that they're all turning into energy. They're all turning into something that is good for me, Sephiroth says, right? So it's like, okay, so they're proposing the idea that we don't really need to worry about all those other timelines too much. We should be worried about like kind of some key ones. And of course, he does that when he converges them The reunion happens, according to Sephiroth.
When he keeps saying reunion, dude, it's
Yeah.
epic. So,
The reunion is different than it is before. It happens. He does it here, seemingly. We don't have all the... Again, a lot of this is interpretation. We have to say we don't have the answers for this shit. But it certainly is like, that's the point of this game.
Yeah.
That's the point of... They talk about a homecoming. The homecoming is
brilliant, yeah.
all of these things are going to come together as much as we possibly can, but he also promotes the idea that I can also split them. Like we can also, as much as they come together, they can separate apart, which means that part 3 could get really crazy.
Oh, yeah.
But the impression after you review a lot of the stuff the characters say, in my opinion, is that Sephiroth has all the other realities out there, right? He brings them all together, and there's a moment of ultimate sadness, a moment that even in real life, we are aware of this ultimate sadness. She dies, and you have to hold that shit. But to Cloud, that doesn't happen. In Cloud's perspective, we watch it through Cloud's eyes. We literally do it for him. We save her, right?
Yeah.
We do.
Yeah.
You literally deflect it. He saved her, bro. So it's like, cool, we fucking did it. To immediately get a moment after, nope. You thought you did. It's
psych.
It's Sephiroth's like, and he has, I brought up the video because he has a line of dialogue right after he kills her. Cloud's on the ground wondering, wait, what just happened? I saved her, dude. And now she's dead in my arms. What is happening? Sephiroth says, and so it begins, a confluence of worlds and emotions. He's going to take, this is the most bad vibes I can possibly build. Like, Cloud bad vibes are my special taste of bad vibes. He loves Cloud bad vibes. He needs all of the clouds. He needs all of the clouds. He says literally a confluence of worlds, which is all of it coming together. He says this line. It's the confluence of all of Cloud's negative motions across all the timelines coming together in a certain moment where he feels like, I saved her, right? Nope, you did not. And then he literally says, loss, chief among them. The best bad vibe, my personal favorite. Mwah. And then after that, it says, it engulfs all of your joy. It takes away your rage. It transforms it all into rage, sadness, hatred, things I personally am a huge fan of. And then right after that, hold on a second, and he says, never have I felt them so keenly in this moment. So Sephiroth is like, he's there. I'm making Cloud feel the worst he possibly could because Cloud is now across all fucking timelines getting this emotion. He's in the worst state he's ever been.
Yeah.
But what happens to Cloud? What happens to Cloud there? What does he see?
You mean
what does Cloud see after Sephiroth says all this stuff in the ending? Do you guys remember?
Oh, what's like right after? I mean, doesn't like Aerith look up at him and
she's alive.
Yeah, says it's okay.
She's like, she literally goes, hey, dude, it's cool.
That's why I was so confused.
And it's like, what the fuck? No, she is alive?
Yeah. I was like, what is happening?
She has all this like live stream stuff around her. She goes, hey, bro, I'm fine. She doesn't have much dialogue. She just says, I'm okay. And it's like, what the fuck? And then Sephiroth, I have to fast forward to see exactly what he says with reference here. Like he literally lays her down like, I saved her. I did. I saved her. She's fine. And then Sephiroth, in this moment, looks at Cloud and he says, you dumb bitch, you'll never see the truth with clouded eyes. He doesn't say you dumb bitch. He says,
I missed the patch there.
He says, you will never see the truth with clouded eyes. You refuse to accept the truth. And what does he do? This motherfucker literally swings the sword with her like blood on it and type shit at him. So it's like, you are refusing to accept the truth. And wow, that sounds like Cloud, right? That kind of sounds a lot like our main character, who in the past had an extremely traumatic event happen to him, where his best friend died in his arms, and he refused to accept the truth. Absolutely refused it. He created a reality where he's a fucking superhero, and he can do anything, and he's actually him. He created a complete alternate reality around this shit. So go ahead.
I was gonna say, you could finish because I was gonna ask a question, but
I was just to put this together. This is the exact situation again. This is Cloud just being Cloud, and he saw himself save her, dude. I did it. I fucking literally did it. And then you're telling me that didn't happen, and he refuses to accept it. He's like, no, I watched it happen. It's cool. So what happens to Aerith after that? Well, she's not really like, she's Aerith. She definitely is. But this is, in my opinion, this is where like my hot topic level 4 thought of this is that version of Aerith that is in his arms at that moment is literally the same thing that he did with Zack back in the past. He refuses to accept the reality that she's dead. I literally watched myself save her, dude. No, I'm not. I don't believe you. You're lying to me. She's alive. And she smiled at me. You know, it's cool. Even though all the other characters, even though everybody else that is there at the time sees otherwise.
And is this what he's going to have to deconstruct with Tifa now instead of the Zack stuff? It's actually this is what they have to force him to face the truth that she's dead and he doesn't believe it. And this is how they peel back the layers.
And this is where our ending gets dark, because clearly this is not our, Omni Aerith. Aerith shows up later, dude. And yeah, that's Aerith. Aerith shows up to help Cloud fight Sephiroth. But it's not as much Cloud versus Sephiroth in that fight. That fight is Aerith versus Sephiroth, bro. You go back and you look at it, that fight opens up. Sephiroth barely even looks at Cloud with Aerith shows up. And when Aerith shows up after all the crazy bullshit she's been doing because she's mad too powerful, and Sephiroth knows it, he's like, oh, I underestimated this chick. And then you have to fight. Another great note in that fight is, and there's a couple of gameplay things that accompany storytelling here. Aerith is busted in that fight. She is way more powerful than she normally is. All of her magics do more damage. Sorceress Storm, from what I recall, immediately breaks the Masamune. And it takes all this extra shit to do it. It's like, whoa, how do I break this sword? It's the only way to pressure him. Aerith can just do it. She's like, nah, screw that shit. I got this.
So sick.
Also, another cool storytelling beat right after, Aerith seemingly doesn't die to Cloud. The entire party is experiencing what Sephiroth wants. I want you to experience loss, turn it into anger, rage, hate, and sadness. This is what I need. Every character in the party has a full limit break at that point.
Oh, yeah.
They are maxed out. Everyone has a maxed out limit break because they're ready to whoop this guy's ass. There's only one character that does not have a limit break. It's Cloud. Because I saved her, bro. He's cool with it.
He doesn't feel
I'm going to still fight you. I'm still going to fight you because we have to stop you. But I don't need to be as mad as everybody else because I saved her. Okay, Cloud. All right, man. So I'm like, all right, this shit is.
Wait, what about Red at the end though? Being aware of
the. Okay.
Yeah.
Just because he's more tapped into the live stream, or
so what? Yes. So there's clearly obviously multiple versions of Aerith and multiple versions of Sephiroth. We sort of acknowledge that, right?
Yeah.
These characters show up in a variety of ways in memories through the live stream talking. Omni Aerith shows up a couple of times in this story, specifically in the date scene, because Omni Aerith, so you remember that song, No Promises to Keep? It's like a song that Aerith never got the chance to be with Cloud, really, because she died in the OG game. She never had a moment to go out with him. To be something outside of some stuff that happened at the Golden Saucer, but that song is very much referencing the fact that Aerith, till the day we can be together again, I can just wherever when. It's, to me, that song is talking about the date that Aerith finally gets with Cloud to know where they stand, and she says it, dude. She literally says that moment when they are in that Sector 5 thing where they're eating the candy and shit. They're doing the Zack date, the alternate, the other world date that they have. That is Omni Aerith. That's Aerith that's aware that, oh yeah, next time, right? Yeah, Cloud's like, yeah, next time. She's like, Cloud, listen, let me start telling you some shit. I need you to go take this thing to go save the world. And they start breaking down, and she hugs him, and it's like, oh, okay, so this is our Omni Aerith. This is that one. That's the same Aerith, in my opinion, that shows up later to help Cloud in fighting Sephiroth. But there is another Aerith that shows up at the end of the game, in my personal opinion. There's the one that's in his arms, right? Cloud just made up this Aerith that's alive, right? I think I'm pretty sound on that one. My next one gets a bit controversial, and people don't like this, because I think the ending of this game is extremely dark. Cloud's in Aerith's arms, just died. I deflected the sword. She's alive to me, right? Everybody else has a limit break. There's some evidence to back that up. After all that's done, you fight a huge amount of fights, a goddamn gauntlet, a brutal gauntlet of bullshit. And then Cloud walks over to Aerith's body, and then around Aerith's body is everybody weeping. She's dead. Cloud doesn't see that. Cloud walks to her body. Everybody's gone. It's just him and her. And he literally tells her, hey, baby, wake up. She wakes up.
Hey, baby, wake up.
I mean, I'm being like, you know, a little heavy-handed with this, but yeah, he literally says that. Hey, Aerith, wake up. So she does it. I'll just do it. Cool. What do we see after that? There's a passage of time that is very awkward, where it's like, oh, so she's alive. Wow, she is alive. That's crazy. We're keeping her alive.
She's dead. She's alive. She's dead. She's alive.
But we flash to all of our characters outside of the pool, outside of the body of water. That, for anybody that knows FF7, is like, oh, this is where Cloud lays her to rest. This is where our party says goodbye to Aerith. This is the goodbye. But we don't see it. We are robbed of that shit. Where it's like, damn, they ruined our scene, mother fifers. How could you do that? We have been robbed of Aerith's death and the finality. We don't even know she's dead.
For this scene,
What? We've been waiting forever, and now we don't get that? And are you kidding me? So it's like, oh, okay. So we're just sitting here. Cloud's sitting there. Everybody else is big sad. everybody around that pool is big sad. Nobody's saying a word. Because what did they just see? They just watched Cloud walk Aerith's body out, not say anything, and sit down. Okay. And then
more fuel for them not trusting him in the next game, too. Everyone's going to be so wary of Cloud.
Yep. They're kind of like, wow, that was extremely sad. And Cloud's just sitting here big chilling. Okay. So what does Barrett say? We've been here for a long time. We better get going. I'm just paraphrasing. And then what is Cloud's response after the most traumatic thing that has happened to the party? Yeah. He says like, okay, yeah, sure. He says like, yeah, let's go. And Tifa goes like, the fuck, dude? What the hell's wrong with you? And then Cloud immediately goes, and it starts freaking out. And he goes through like immense pain and he gets visions of what actually happened. She died. There's visions of the materia falling. She died. But he's like, God damn that. No. She didn't die. She didn't die. So what does he see after that? His brain can't handle this shit. I need comfort. What does he see? He looks over and she's right there. Yeah. She's right next to him, covered in shadow. The music is scary as shit. It's so haunting. He looks over. He's like, oh baby, it's you. I have 2 girlfriends now. This is great. I'm so happy. Everyone else is sad. I'm so happy. Aerith literally says lines from the most of her dialogue from this point forward comes from previous versions of Aerith. Comes from lines from Remake and lines from earlier in Rebirth. Her dialogue is just the same shit. So what I'm trying to propose here, I guess this is going to get to like level 7 because at the end of the next game we're just going to know everything. I think this is a different Aerith. At the end of the game, the one that was in Cloud's arms, I think Cloud created a reality where this chick lived. I saved her, man. I watched it happen. I literally watched it happen. And everybody else didn't see it happen. I saw this shit. She's fine. Look, she woke up. We're good, right? And to the point where he has erased. We are now in the unreliable narrator territory, in my opinion. They are like, hey, so okay, you know, we are. We can't reliably as developers do the unreliable narrator thing because our players know too much. But we can do something. Cloud refuses to accept Aerith's death. Refuses. And he also, this falls in line with Cloud a lot for Advent Children. Because in Advent Children, he cannot let himself, let himself go. He can't forgive himself at all. Yeah. So this is very much in line with Cloud. At this point in the story, he's doing the exact same shit he's done with Zack. He is suppressing this stuff so much, he doesn't even remember putting her body into the water. Doesn't even remember her dying. He's getting visions of it. His brain is trying to like, a real Cloud in there is like, you stupid mother, come on, wake up. But that real Cloud is getting smaller and smaller and smaller. The further away all this stuff starts getting crammed into his head. So that's my impression of where Cloud is at in that mental state and why everyone is so sad in that moment. Because in that moment, Aerith shows up, a different version of Aerith that like, you know, is talking to Cloud and stuff and is super cool with him. Mm-hmm. But also, in my opinion, looks hella weird. Okay. The Aerith at the end of the game, in my personal take, is that she looks weird, dude. I feel uncomfortable looking at her. And somebody shot for me, and it's like, yes, character expressions can only do so much in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, right? I get it. Like the way characters' faces move and animate. Somebody shot to me a video of Sephiroth in the beginning of the game with all the fire behind him. And he does this thing where he smiles at Cloud with his eyes. He does this like, I'm doing my best to emulate it. He does this really weird fucking face to Cloud, and it does look weird. When you go back and you watch the opening, when he's like torched the town, it's like, what are these weird sexy eyes you're giving me, bro? What is this? It hella looks similar to the way Aerith smiles at Cloud.
So,
and I'm like, what the fuck? Why does she look like that? And again, she looks weird in the CG scene just in general because the character's just a little off from the CG models and stuff. So here's my, I got a little bit of evidence to back this up and a little bit of counter evidence too. My level 7 brain theory is that at that moment, Sephiroth realizes that Cloud is so fucked up. I tried my best, dude. I shoved the blood of her in his face. I literally, everyone else, I murdered her in I'm murdering her in every timeline. I'm making every version of you experience the most pain you possibly can. And you, stupid bitch, have eyes clouded. You refuse to see the truth. So I'm just going to show you your truth. And at that point, I personally feel that Sephiroth or Jenova, that this is a version of Aerith in Cloud's head now that we already can confirm. Cloud has already done this before. He's just visioning this. I think now this is a manipulation of Sephiroth. I think now
I was going to ask you if it was like the whispers or if it was like...
I think this is getting really dark, even darker than before. They're going into unreliable narrator territory now where Cloud now has... his girlfriend number 2 is fine. She's alive and she's cool with me. I refuse to accept her death. And like Sephiroth is using her imagery, Jenova like a puppet, like mimicry. Oh, and a lot of the way she's acting at the end of the game is mimicry. It's like in the perspective of Cloud, doing her best to be Aerith like.
So it's Jenova then?
I can't have an answer if it's Jenova or Sephiroth or something, but some accompanying evidence. A lot of this game tries to tell us over and over again. It can take the form of those you love, right? They can take your friends of friends and family. That's how it got to the Cetra. It took the form of dead people. The Cetra literally said that it took the form of our fallen brothers and sisters to manipulate us, and that doesn't fully come around. That story beat does not. They tell us to it several times. They impose it at the beginning that Sephiroth starts saying like, "No, Tifa's Jenova, bro. I killed her. That's Jenova. You shouldn't trust her." But eventually, Cloud comes around because he shines. He's like, "Jesus Christ, what have I done? I'm so sorry. I'll tell you when I'm feeling like a weird shithead again." Yeah. So that story point does not intentionally come through.
And then weren't we talking about Glenn earlier too? Doesn't that
Dude?
Weird?
So in that scene. That scene concludes with Cloud and the party getting up and leaving. And Cloud has a fucking smile on his face. He's like, I have 2 girlfriends now. This is sick. Let's go on an adventure and kick Sephiroth's ass. And all the party is big sad and they leave. I absolutely love what they do with Tifa here. Tifa is... I feel so bad for her. She is going through it, dude. And then Cloud is like, Tifa, let's go. And like him and Aerith are just sitting there. Tifa gets up and looks at Cloud, and all Cloud is doing is staring at nothing, but he's just smiling at his girlfriend Aerith right there. Let's go. So you cool?
This would be
Tifa is just like, holy fuck, dude, what is happening here? So go ahead. What do you want to say?
So this would be girlfriend 3 for Cloud then.
Wait, so Tifa, Aerith, what's his other girlfriend?
And imaginary Aerith.
Oh, well, no. Imaginary Aerith.
Genova Aerith. No. Genova is his girlfriend, right? So 3.
Yeah, well, to Cloud, this is Aerith alive. My 2 girlfriends are alive. I'm big happy, bro. Let's go. So what happens right after this scene? And I'll tell it to you because there's a lot of fucking information that happens after this. The scene, the way they're presenting information to the player, I think is really important. The scene that happens right after this, the party leaves, and we cut to Rufus Shinra. Rufus Shinra learns that Sephiroth has taken the fucking form of a guy that I killed and has been manipulating me to do some wild shit. And I started a war that I probably shouldn't have started. Oh, crap. And then what happens right after that? Let's cut to our party on the way to their adventure. And then we get, I'm going to skip ahead and so I can actually come up with some literal character. dialogue examples. Oh, by the way, I'd like to highlight we also get the Zack scene here, and genuinely, I don't know. Like, I feel like there's a lot of accompanying elements in this game where we can come up with conclusions and like be like, oh yeah, there's a lot of evidence for this shit, and maybe some counter evidence in some spots. But the Zack stuff, it seems like Sephiroth converged a lot of these timelines and shit, but also proposed that they can be split. Zack realizes that and is like, so maybe they can come back together again, because he seemingly is in some weird place now. We don't know what timeline he's in. There's no dogs. So us as players have no fucking clue. All we know, Zack lives. He's alive somewhere.
It was cool when he banished him, and Zack's like, ah.
Yeah, exactly. It was like, whoa, that's interesting. So they promote this idea of like follow the yellow flowers, and I think yellow flowers is going to be like portals between timelines or some shit like that, where it's like, oh, that's where our characters will be able to find it.
Dude,
exactly.
Follow the flowers.
Again, I'd like to also promote a pretty cool thing before we get to what happens in the final CG. I think most of the time, Aerith is communicating to the planet throughout our character's perspective. She's not talking to the planet, dude. She's talking to herself. It's Omni Aerith trying to give herself information about like what to do and where to go. Because she has this like mystery thing she says at the end of Remake, follow the yellow flowers. Like, I don't know what it means. It's herself from like the future Omni Aerith across all timelines, giving herself information to hopefully help her out in the future. So I think she clearly can communicate with the planet. She's part of the Cetra, obviously. But, you know, it's already been promoted that our Aerith can just teleport to any other timeline Aerith's body. She can just go anywhere at like any point. She's too OP. Character is fucking busted. Like Aerith is so OP that, again, Sephiroth calls her out on her bullshit and he's like, that ain't fair. So I think it's really cool what they're doing with her. Aerith is so powerful, it's insane in terms of overall character power level. That Sephiroth is lightning. Yeah, Sephiroth is trying to overdo this shit by becoming as like, you know, Infinity Sephiroth and shit. So, what did you guys? I don't want to talk forever here. What did you guys feel about the ending? Oh I want to know some other opinions, because just in general, I've sat on this for a while and I was only given this information from my chat. Right, this is just me siphoning info as it hits my head, and a lot of it changed my mind. Again, I changed my mind 4 times on what happens in the ending to eventually land on something that I think feels right and then also feels really creepy, just based on the way the developers are cooking this stuff. So I'm curious what you guys feel about like the ending CG sequences and stuff with like spirit / non-spirit Aerith and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, I like, it's hard to like say whether or not like it's really happening. It's in Cloud's head or it's a byproduct of something else.
Yeah.
The thing I want, like the thing I would like to believe and I would like to hope see come to pass. Not quite. I mean, your theory is really good too and be really awesome. And I saw some people in chat saying like Square Enix might not be able to go that dark and do that stuff, but who knows? I mean, they've done some pretty dark stuff in some other games. We'll have to see. Part of me thinks that I still believe that all of this is because Jenova wants to win and knows it keeps losing in all these outcomes. And I hate to keep going
something drastic.
I hate to keep going back to this because I mean it's multiverse. I think they are just big fans of Marvel. I think it's literally Jenova pulled the Doctor Strange. What is the one way I win? What is the one way out of all these timelines I can freaking win? And I don't get thwarted by all this shit. And how do I do it? And I think Jenova is straight up. Everyone is being played by Jenova. Yeah. Even Sephiroth. He thinks he's a large level. I think Sephiroth is thinking like he's like Black Materia. I'm going to do convergence. I think he's just like he's not like he's born of Jenova's cells, but like he's not one of them. Like they have these people have parts, but they're from this planet. They are not what Max Jenova. Was saying
about like making it as close as possible to save Aerith, which is like the one timeline where it's like Cloud thinks he actually saved her and has that false hope. Yeah. Before he like rips it away from him.
And Omni Aerith, whatever you want to call her, she seems to be the highest level of concern for her is that Cloud wins, succeeds, lives, whatever. It's Cloud is instrumental. And so I think Jenova wants things like Jenova using Sephiroth and other means wants to change things. I think if Jenova really wanted to win, I think she wanted Aerith to survive because it doesn't her death triggers things that ultimately lead to, they always win. It always motivates them to win, which is why I do think part of your thing about the fuckery with his head, this is how like Jenova's like, I can it was like there was something there with his false memories, but we got to push harder, like lean into the despair, lean into like confusing him with multiple timeline perceptions, and like he really won't be able to tell what's going on, and like he is going to break up the group. I think you're right with that. Like Barrett's line about, "Are you sure about this?" Everything rides on this. I think they're setting it up for a big failure where it's like,
even bigger than before.
We fucked up. It's over. And like, there's gonna be some Deus Machina shit that's like, oh wait, Omni Aerith, there's some other person has a way. There's a way to undo it. There's a way to undo it. Like, we're gonna get that moment in there. But I think it's like, it's just Jenova manipulating everybody to achieve its ultimate victory. And everyone who thinks that they're like, I'm gonna win, Hojo, Sephiroth, even like everyone, it's all pawn pieces she is moving around to achieve this. And
I think they want to give Jenova a bit more agency in general, right? I think and there's some weird callbacks throughout the story of this that like just make me think that this final version of Aerith and the manipulation of like Cloud's memory and hope that he saved her is messing with him so much. There's, again, we talked about this in Remake. Music is a huge spoiler in a lot of like what is happening with this story. And have you, number one, this is kind of big and it's right in front of our face. The name of Jenova in the end is not Jenova Life anymore. It's called Jenova Life Klinger.
Yep.
And the Jenova theme that plays during that, it starts off not as the Jenova theme, like the OG, because it's also a reference. It references the OG, which plays Aerith theme during the boss fight. It's very dramatic, right? It starts off as the Aerith theme, and then it's like the goddamn Jenova theme eats it. It consumes it, and it like becomes the Aerith theme, but all the notes are fucked up and weird and bizarre, and it's like, ooh, weird. That's very unsettling. Another thing I looked at, there's a very specific shot that Cloud holds dear where it's like, I'm holding like Aerith's hand to my face type stuff. And I'm like, I've seen this before, dude. I've literally seen this imagery somewhere in this game. Where the fuck is it? And I went back, and it's the first Jenova fight. First Jenova fight, Sephiroth is doing this very weird gesture that I always thought was odd. Like he's going to kiss this shit or something. He's holding up some weird appendage of Jenova to his face, the very similar way that Cloud does. And he's like, it can imitate those you love, though, like all that shit. He has that line. And I always thought that looked weird. I'm like, that's a weird. Why is he like caressing this bit? Like, ooh, yeah, you like it. Like he never does that with any of the other like weird Jenova forms. I'm like, and it kind of very much looks like when Cloud and Aerith, he's like holding Aerith's hand towards his face. I'm like, that always felt off to me. I'm like, I feel like I've seen this before. I went back and it's kind of similar. And it's funny, in that moment, Sephiroth is literally explaining that, yeah, Jenova can like impersonate those you love and shit. Okay. Yeah. That doesn't have to mean anything. However, I think what I'm about to reveal to people, based on what characters are clearly putting on the screen, it has subtitles, dude, is a much bigger reveal of what happens in this finality. Because to me, my impression of the ending of this game is that Aerith's like a Force ghost now, different from 100%. The OG. She's a Force ghost. Oh 100%. Shit!
I got Force ghost vibes so quick. I was
absolutely.
Like, okay.
She's Force like ghost. She's going to be like there as like an accompanying, like guiding party member. She even says it, buddy. You go take care of shit. I'm going to cast the thing. I'm going to get it all done. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah. She's like a Force ghost that's going to be sort of like showing up every once in a while and like full, helping us
father, son, Kamehameha, giving the party power.
And the live stream, that makes sense to me. That completely makes sense to me. I don't think that's the case anymore. I think it's much darker than that. And so there's a very cute thing they do with scene direction at the end of this game, and a lot of people, this is immediately dismissed by one thing that I think is clearly intentional, which is Red 13. Red 13 senses Aerith. Straight is like, oh, she's here. Like, look at, he goes like, Aerith? Like he like references her. So we'll talk about that in a bit, because
that was my biggest question. Is like,
it was like, oh yeah, that pretty much brings me back to a reality where like, oh yeah, that she's here. She's going to say goodbye to the party. I'm going to take care of stuff. You go do things. Bye-bye everybody. Big happy ending, right? There's a really cool thing they do in scene direction in this entire scene. There's obvious stuff too. When Sid is working on the plane, they clearly give us the hints that none of our party see her. And I think we can all acknowledge that. Even if you think she's a Force ghost, everybody is like, oh yeah, she her dress, and she doesn't know that the plane is about to like blow up and cause everyone to go, ah! So her dress doesn't react, her body doesn't react, and she doesn't react. She reacts almost late, and she goes like, oh yeah, oops, that's crazy. Even when Sid is sitting here and he's like cooking on stuff, and he's like, all right, we're ready to go. What does Aerith do? A spirit Aerith goes, woohoo! Yeah, we're going on an adventure, which is very weird. Just in general, everyone else is like, woohoo, we're going on an adventure. She does the same thing, but you obviously can't hear her. At this point in the scene, Cloud is paying attention to Aerith. He's like looking down there. He looks left and sees Aerith. There's a wonderful thing they do with scene direction here, and I think I got you, devs. I'm going to call it right now. I think I've achieved level 7, and I think I got you. The only time Aerith does things and emotes and acts is when Cloud is paying attention to her. The only time she exists in any of these scenes is when Cloud is paying attention to her. And when Cloud is paying attention, she acts like Aerith. She definitely is acting like Aerith. So there's a moment where you don't see Aerith at all at the beginning, and Cloud is sitting here just like gazing at this empty materia, not knowing what the hell this shit is. The background shows all of our characters except Aerith. And then there is a moment where Sid is working on the plane, and it comes back, and Cloud looks over. Aerith is there. She's with the party, acting like Aerith. Hey, guys, let's go on an adventure. That's where that happens. And then as Cloud moves away, and like everyone starts talking about, like, she's just literally acting like she's in the party doing cool shit. So it's like, okay, yeah, Cloud's built this Aerith up in his head. She's alive, bro. She's a Force ghost. We're cool, right? There's a really specific shot after I have to fast forward a bit, and I wish I could like show you guys this so you can like one by one it. I'll make a video on it later. She walks by Yuffie, but Cloud is still like paying attention to her throughout this scene, and she literally pays attention to Kate Sith. I'm sorry, to Red 13. Anytime Cloud is not paying attention to Aerith, it cuts back to a moment of Cloud sitting there, and she's gone. She's literally gone. So anytime this Aerith that is here is for some reason acting like Aerith would always act. Kind of weird. Okay, so let's go forward a bit. Our characters are talking about stuff, right? Red 13 feels her presence. I wish I can share with you the moment in the video, but it's right as Cloud is like investigating this thing and looking at Aerith, and it cuts back and she's gone when Cloud is not paying attention. All of our characters are talking about leaving. Cloud gets the black materia somehow. We don't know what the fuck is going on. Okay. Cloud gets the black materia. Cool. We don't know how he got it. He's on his Dark Knight route, but he's clearly going to be manipulated by this shit.
So punished.
Mega punished Cloud. This is the most punished Cloud is ever going to be. Aerith is not present in like any of these scenes at all, really. And then Bareth gives him the very heavy-handed, like, speech, and Cloud is a complete effing weirdo. Don't look at the sky. Don't look at it. It's crazy. And people are like, okay, it's an illusion. Okay. So Cloud clearly has like either visions of something or what's going on. We don't know. Moving forward a little bit, I'd like to remind you of something that Aerith constantly talks to Cloud about throughout this entire game. Omni Aerith, even regular Aerith. The entire game, Aerith is like, Cloud, you need to take care of yourself, dude. And even at the finality of the game, the last time Cloud kind of talks to Omni Aerith in like the Sleeping Forest, she says, let me take this, dude. I got it. I will handle Sephiroth. Cloud, I need you to take care of yourself. Please take care of yourself. Constantly. As Aerith shows up, she regurgitates lines that come from Remake, Part 1, when they separate at Sector 7. It's the same dialogue, to a degree. And then she tells Cloud, hey, buddy, I'm gonna... By the way she's acting here is mad weird. She says, I'm going to go cast Holy and stop the meteor type of shit. So Aerith is doing everything Cloud kind of wants her to do at this point. The line that gets me brutally, and I think there's a visual accompaniment for it. I'm going to fast forward a little bit while Damiani comes back.
Sorry.
Because I don't know if Mike has seen this.
Sorry.
The part where they exchange all this dialogue and she says, "You're going to get back? You're going to have fun? You're going to have a good time?" And he's like, "Yeah, baby, don't worry about it. I'm going to go kick his ass." And they have like, they don't talk to each other like this throughout the game at all. They never communicate to each other in this way because Cloud's relationship is with like a ghost now, like potentially something that's in his head. So it's really weird. Aerith has a line of dialogue here that I'm convinced, dude. I'm just personally convinced. Cloud's like, "Yes, I'll keep an eye out. It's okay." And Aerith says, "I'm going to put everything into my prayers. We're going to stop the meteor." And she says, "Oh, super weird. And you know what? I'm going to leave the rest to you. Good luck, everybody." And then Cloud goes, "Aerith, I am going to stop Sephiroth. Trust me." That's his line verbatim. He says, "Don't worry. I will fight him. We will fight Sephiroth. That's what you want me to do, right?" When Aerith has explained several times that might not be the best option. That might not be good. Sometimes fighting and stuff like that, what she says at Temple of the Ancients is very like representative of like her impressions of like where this goes. She does not. She wants you to take care of yourself. She specifically says, "Leave Sephiroth to me. I will handle this. Please stop fighting Cloud." Cloud says, "I'm going to fight Sephiroth. Trust me, baby. I got it." What is Aerith's response? There's a weird shot of her feet, a weird lonely shot. She turns around and goes, "You promise? You promise you're going to fight him? You promise?" She literally says, "You promise." And it's like, oh, that's weird. Why does she want Cloud to go fight Sephiroth? Why does she say, Cloud's like, we're going to go fight Sephiroth. Don't worry about it. And she turns around and goes, "You promise? Yeah? You going to do that?" And Cloud goes, "I promise." When she turns around and says, "I promise," in 4K, you can see it. She has this weird ass red glint in her eyes. And the color red throughout the most of this game is fucking Sephiroth, dude. It's not present in any of the shots with Aerith. I'm telling you, dude, I looked.
Don't worry,
I fucking
Max.
looked.
You're gonna be right, dude. You're gonna be right, dude, because when part 3 comes out, they will patch part 2. And they'll like play like a little Sephiroth jingle right there or something.
It'll be
just
gone.
to reconfirm
In each of her eyes is this weird pixel. I would like to echo to you how Aerith is it to hear from Cloud, "We're gonna go fight Sephiroth. That's what you want, right?" And he's like, "You promise to fight him?" She's encouraging it. She wants him. She wants him to go fucking do it. At this point, I watch this scene over and over again. I'm like, who is this? Who is this person? This isn't acting like Aerith at all anymore. Number one, saying that she's going to go cast holy. Right? She literally says, "I'm going to go pray to stop the meteor." Like the meteor is the big threat. Like that's already happened, but we don't even know if that's happened yet. She seemingly is like talking about something that's going to happen in the future that we think is going to happen, but still, us as players know that, sure. But like the party is aware that it's going to happen. That hasn't happened yet, dude. Like the black materia has not been given to Sephiroth yet. So even Aerith is like, I'll put everything I got into my prayers. I'll stop the meteor. Like, wait a minute, aren't we supposed to stop that? Like, I'm a little confused by the way she's. Again, I would also like to say this 100% could be bad translation or poor storytelling. And this could just be Aerith not acting like Aerith at all. Acting nothing like the character does throughout the entire game. It could be.
Yeah. I also
because she's like transcended too, so that could change her like, personality at that point.
100%. It could be a bad translation. But to me, the scene leads with all of our characters like putting everything on Cloud. Tifa doesn't say a thing to Cloud for the entirety of this ending. She says no words to him. And when there's a really good moment that makes this like way darker than it kind of is. Barrett has the line to Cloud where he's like, "Hey, dude, like a lot's riding on this. Are you going to be okay?" And based on everything that's happened, what's Cloud's line of dialogue? He turns around like completely confident and says, and it disturbs Barrett. He says, "Don't worry about me. I can handle it." Like, dude, we just watched her die. Yeah. And you're like, you're not even what? And Barrett turns around and goes like almost disgusted, like, what the hell? And Tifa looks mortified. Like, what are you? Who are you? They're setting up Cloud to be this absolute wild, unreliable narrator. Because I personally feel he set up a reality in his head where I saved Aerith, right? But what actually happened was she died. He refuses to accept it. We don't see the burial. And suddenly we get this weird version of Aerith that doesn't seem to be talking normally like Aerith does. It could be in Cloud's head. It could be Jenova. It could be Sephiroth. It could be a Force Ghost. It could be any of these things. But to me, it feels like
white situation.
This is a massive manipulation. This feels like there's a lot of stuff that's building up earlier that didn't pay off either, of like the Jenova shit kicking in. And there's some notes and hints throughout here. Dude, in what situation Aerith, normal Aerith in Final Fantasy is like, go fight him. You promise you're going to go fight him?
Maybe do we know this already? Like, why? How come in the Nibelheim section when Cloud and Sephiroth are there, that it's like in the place of Zack? It's like Crisis Core, but not like does that relate to what's going on at the end at all?
So you're saying the second visit to Nibelheim, right?
Yeah.
So recount for me the event. I'm trying to remember which one you're talking about.
Well, just because there's like a scene in Crisis Core when you're going to Nibelheim and you're with Sephiroth. You're going to see the reactor and Tifa is your guide.
Oh.
Yeah.
How come that's like of the similar scene but with Cloud?
Because that's
instead of
Cloud's misremembering it. It's the it's the OG.
It's just him misremembering it. It's not any kind of like illusion or
it's Cloud's mental
mind
fuckery.
tricking him.
Exactly.
That's all in. So again, Cloud's at the brim of mind fuckery.
He got experimented on by Hojo when he was in captivity with Zack, and so his mind is just like was fragmented, and he's just trying to
And even he starts remembering some weird shit. He starts remembering some like funky shit later on of like, my best friend Zack was here.
It's been a while.
Yeah.
He's like, in the new game, he was like, my best friend Zack was here. He went down the river. He died. Oh my God. Like he gets freaked out by it. So but he's remembering the wrong way. He's remembering it in the way that he still thinks he's Zack. He still doesn't actually have the actual memory.
But I guess my question is that, could this be a similar situation at all with Aerith?
Oh, where this is in like, well, this is clearly in Cloud's head, right? Yeah. Obviously, the rest of our party, she's dead. Everybody is mortified by this. Anytime, the weirdest thing, in my opinion, about this ending scene is that why is Cloud's head Aerith, right? Which does happen. Aerith shows up in Cloud's mind and shit, and she's like kind of Omni Aerith, omnipotent. People think this is Omni Aerith. I don't think this character at the end is Omni Aerith. Every time Cloud pays attention to her, she's essentially acting like Aerith. And even Red 13 senses it. My only point of argument against that, where it's like, but Red 13 senses it, so it's Aerith, right? But Red 13 in the OG game is manipulated by Jenova and Sephiroth to give the black materia. They trust Barrett or Red 13, I think, in the OG with the black materia. So we think Red 13's a wizened creature, right? No, he's actually young. He's actually a kid. He's very Cloud-like, really. He's putting on a persona to be cool. And literally, they trust him with it, and he loses it. So, I mean, we're already under the impression from our characters from the old games that Red 13's manipulatable. He's not infallible. He's definitely more connected than most, but clearly, like, it can go south. So, my biggest point about this ending scene is, you have to admit, dude, there's some weird things where she's like acting like she's alive.
Do we think there's any Hojo manipulations through Aerith here?
Not for this, probably.
Like, I don't think so.
Okay.
No.
I don't think it's Hojo at all. I think this is all in stuff in Cloud's head. The biggest point of, I think, contention for this end scene is that a lot of people think this is Omni Aerith. They think that this is the Aerith that is, kind of omnipotent and gives Cloud information, and they go on dates and stuff like that. But the way they communicate is not that. They don't sound like they're talking to each other. This sounds very stilted and weird. The other parts of the party sound normal, by the way. I'd like to throw that out. Why I don't think this is bad translation or this is bad writing, because the other party members are in line. Barrett and Tifa are shocked. They are disgusted almost by the way Cloud is acting and what he's doing. It's just that Cloud and Aerith seem to be on some like weird dream reality with each other. So, and this is all in Cloud's head. Like, in my opinion, this is all in Cloud's head, but I think this is like manipulation. I really do. The ending sets up for something very like cheery, and Aerith goes like goodbye, you know, like all of this stuff.
Sunshine and rainbows.
I honestly wouldn't even like be surprised if the next game cuts in immediately and it like zooms in on Aerith after she says goodbye, and it's all looming and creepy and shit, because it already is setting up this looming and creepy thing. Like, what? Who is that? Isn't in his head? Is she just around there all over the place? So anyway. A lot of people aren't going to like it. I've watched it so many times. The scene direction in the end feels very intentional. How they are presenting.
I feel like everything in this game is very intentional.
Very
100%.
intentional. How they're and why would they do that? Like, why would the reason be for this? Dude, imagine in the next game if like suddenly Aerith is back. Wait, why is she back? Why? And Aerith is like talking to Cloud, convincing him about shit. Talking to him even more convincing than even Sephiroth is, because Sephiroth in Cloud's memories, he doesn't trust that dude. He tries his best to fight that dude, but there is somebody he trusts, his girlfriend that he saved. So I think they're setting up for a really dark part 3, where in Cloud's mind prison in the end, he has to realize she died. You need to accept she died, dude.
Oh, that's when you fight him, dude. He'll have a full mental breakdown. Boss fight Cloud. Let's go.
You're gonna get the lake scene. You're gonna watch the lake scene happen. You're gonna watch, like, you know, when Cloud is like, when Aerith dies, you see Cloud talking and stuff. He's like saying all this stuff, but he doesn't say anything in our perspective. You're gonna see all of those things actually happen. It's the full realization that as Cloud needs to accept that she died. You need to accept that Zack died. You need to accept that you are a person under all of that. That's who you're supposed to be. You can't live with this forever. You need to accept the truth, motherfucker. And that's where...
Go ahead.
Go ahead. You know, you go ahead.
If only Cloud sees her, though, then wouldn't he eventually realize that, she's not like talking to anyone else? Or like no one is really like communicating.
We're already there.
He's just like imagining all that shit.
We're already there. He's already like everybody around him is in the worst moment of their lives. He just forgot he dropped off her body and looks over. Hey, baby, what's up? Smiling and happy about it. We're already there, dude. He's gone. And every other member of the party is trying to tell us he's gone. Where everything is riding on this, but we have lost him, dude. Cloud's in a much worse state than he was in the OG game at this point. In the OG game at this point, he actually has accepted Aerith's death. He has like a speech at the end of the game in like, right before the altar. And he's like, we have to do this for her. We have to save this planet type of shit. He's still in like, hero Cloud form before he has like his breakdown. So that's not this Cloud. No. This Cloud is being manipulated by the black materia that he is hiding from everybody else. He doesn't want anybody to know that he has it. I'm like, what more evidence do we need, dude? What do we...
Cloud. I don't know. Let the legend come back to life.
Jesus, man. Mike, what do you feel about that? Do you feel that this Aerith in the end is acting anything like Aerith at all?
So the little CG end, like, that's not like, it can't be any more obvious that she's not physically there. Like, she's not physically there, and like I even my like timeline conversion saying like he's just seeing. I thought he was just seeing visions of another Aerith there.
Exactly,
but it could also just be like the live stream Aerith is communicating with him, and
Omni Aerith.
I don't think it's. Yeah, I don't know if it's Omni Aerith though. I think Omni Aerith is something different. I think this is Aerith that died, went to the Aerith that died went to the live stream and is just talking with him. I think. Like Omni Aerith, or whatever we're gonna call the all-knowing Aerith, is like
Aerith the White.
There's so many big questions I have. Why was Sephiroth specifically hunting for that one Aerith? Obviously, we've talked about he tries to like kill her and other ones, but like he's like, this is where you were hiding in this world that has accepted its fate. It's like this Sephiroth has been tracking this specific Aerith across multiple realities, and she's been trying to hide from it until she could do this one act, and then she's like, it's okay, I'm fine. I achieved my goal of giving you white materia, and that allows Aerith to pray, which another Sephiroth says good Aerith
is happy
pray.
with that.
And I'm like, so this is my crazy thing, Max. I think obviously there are multiple Sephiroths. I think there is one Sephiroth working towards one objective, the one we've been like all clearly seeing. Yeah. I think there's one that knows Jenova is not his mom, not a good. Like, I think there's a Sephiroth that has accepted the truth, and wants to work with Cloud to the one who said I want to defy reality and the 7-second shit. I think there's a Sephiroth who's like, I saw what happened. Genova wins and I get fucked over too. And like this can't happen.
Dude,
so I need to help. I need to help Cloud.
Let's go.
So I think there's a good Sephiroth in all this. That's my wild one. Is that there is a Sephiroth who is out to help.
I acknowledge that might not be where the story is going thematically, but that is wild and crazy enough where that would be nuts, and I kind of love it. Where it's like, yeah, there's a version of Sephiroth that even realizes that this crazy alien bitch is actually a problem. Maybe we should take her out. Maybe I should be the thing that exists in the end of it. So you're telling me a Cloud Sephiroth team up?
That's I think there will be a point where like that we see that play out in some level of their reality. And also the other big thing is like
the only point of contention I have for that, Sephiroth can't be a good guy.
Oh, I don't know. I don't think he's gonna be good guy. I think he's just like he understands whether it's choosing Genova winning or you know what, like part of him will remember I was good once. I was a human. He'll remember that side and be like, I'm gonna do this. Like I'm choosing one or the other. I will choose humanity. I realize I was played by Genova, but like I can't undo all the evil fucking shit I've been doing. Maybe
that's why at the edge of creation they talk so differently, because Sephiroth can actually like talk to Cloud maybe without like Genova interference or some shit. Like the edge of creation, which is like the 7 seconds to the end kind of like Sephiroth, right? I don't know. Like there's some weird. Yeah, that's an interesting thing to go back and look at.
Yeah, I just don't think he'll be a good guy. Sorry. Yeah, I don't think he'll be a good guy. But I think he knows that like it's the lesser of two evils he's picking, and he's just like, and it has to be Cloud. It's not gonna be him that saves the day. He just gives like a path to Cloud to be able to do it. And also, again, I think. Honestly, I know this is being dark for Aerith and Cloud. I don't think Cloud and Aerith are ever like meant to be together, and I think this is playing out as it is. I do think we are going to get a sappy good thing with Zack and Aerith. I think Zack and Aerith reunion is happening. They will get there, and it will be in some reality or the live stream, wherever they are ending up together. You're getting that moment. We're all going to freaking weep and cry.
The Zack
and, like,
and Aerith
awesome.
reunion of them actually being their like versions.
The live stream.
Yeah,
that's absolutely
something will happen eventually.
No one has brought up Nero and Weiss. How does that factor into this shit?
Weiss doesn't factor. He's only CG. Yeah. He's a VR guy. But Nero, yes, deep ground stuff I think will start showing up deeply for Wutai.
Yep.
Okay. I think the Wutai War is going to be a lot of like crazy deep ground shit.
I agree, and that, and or the return to Midgar and more Vincent stuff. Like, and actually, I think they might even tie it a little bit to Sid, because they seem to be leaning heavier into Sid's involvement with Shinra. And who is it? I give credit to Simmons because he's the first one to point it out, even though I kind of like was suspecting it, but he pushed harder. Is there any thoughts that maybe Sid is related to Aerith, like he was like so protective of her and like kept asking. I could see it going either way, but
isn't Professor Gast Aerith's father?
That's how it's supposed to be. But we're in a different reality, so I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
it
could just be he had a crush and he just like trying to look after his.
They definitely had a thing where they had like a fling for a bit.
Yeah.
So he like cares about her in some way. When they found out that she like when he found out if Falna actually died, it like fucked him up. Where he's like, well, I should do something. By the way, Sid's a complete character betrayal in a good way. Sid is not the same character he was before. They instead Han Solo him in this game. They turned him into the hero pilot guy, which he wasn't before, but like the same Sid that they had before, there's going to be some contention because he's not the same Sid, that we see in this game that we present to him before, which is like the very angry and bitchy Sid. He's very aggressive for sure, but he is very much the Han Solo kind of character of our party now.
It's fine. That's a good point.
I like it. And I think I'm like, you know what? I can acknowledge this is very different than the old Sid. I can acknowledge that, but I don't hate it. I actually kind of like it.
I'm very curious if they're going to keep the whole thing about the failed rocket, because they gave him some backstory about what he said, like what he was doing in the past, how he used to work like a I forget what it was, like not a warehouse job or something for like he gave some of his past stuff. So I don't know if they're going to go with the same backstory with that.
The
if
Crisis Core museum, the museum section has a little bit.
Has like a rocket
they do
thing.
have
Yeah,
that.
the space
So
section.
I hope they keep something like that in there because like it would be kind of cool.
The space program exists. Like Palmer has already talked about, if this goes well, we can get money for the space program. Like he said that in Remake before. So the space program has existed and it was seemingly canceled. So because Palmer hints at it. So I'm 100% convinced Rocket Town is normal. It's still gonna have like the Tower of Pizza rocket. Like it's though Sid has his backstory. We just haven't learned that about Sid, that he has aspirations to go to space.
Yeah, I still expect that to happen. What was the other crazy thing I forgot? Because we talked about the last scene real quick. We talked about like obviously like Cloud has black materia and like because he needs to give it to a version of Sephiroth who's still in the north crater. Like we still think it's happening. The effect it did when he put it into the Buster Sword though,
so intense.
What was that, like Transformers looking like Matrix glitchy shit? Like with the
that's where I'm pitching the idea. This is Cloud's Dark Knight arc. This is where he's being like manipulated, like the One Ring type shit, by the black materia, and it's gonna fuck him up. This is like even more stuff. Cloud has an imaginary girlfriend that may or may not be a complete goddamn Sephiroth manipulation, like fucking with him. He also is, Zack somewhere in there too. The trauma of, the trauma of death. He's hiding all of this, and he's also being manipulated potentially by weird black materia. He's corrupted as shit now.
Okay.
So I think that's gonna show up gameplay wise in the next game. I think Cloud is not gonna play the same big air combos guy, which is what he is in this one. I think they're gonna go for something much more violent. He's going to be a much more violent gameplay style in the next game, whatever they call it.
Salted Earth and Quietus. Hell yeah.
Some of the kills in this one were really hinting.
They're pretty brutal. They already hint at it. And we already get some materia gameplay stuff that feels very Dark Knight-ish throughout this game. I think they're just going to utilize that stuff, in the same way that they made materia in part 1 just part of characters' toolkits in this game.
Yeah, I mean, I hope it also has a gameplay, like as you said, like it
impacts
his gameplay, it'd be pretty sick.
I think so.
Another question, real quick. The weapons appearance in this, obviously we haven't seen the fabled Ruby Emerald, anything like that yet, but they looked way unique, right? I mean, they almost look like a Sin from Final Fantasy X is like the closest thing I thought they looked like.
I think they're scouts.
Yeah. Okay.
I think they're like personal, like, parts of the planet that are wig weapons for sure, but aren't for like combat. They're there to like scout shit, because that's seemingly what they're doing. They're like hovering around looking at what the hell Sephiroth's doing down there and stuff, because Sephiroth is like cooking up some weird shit under the ocean. I'm fairly sure the impression that we're getting is that something really bad is happening at the final shot of them, and they're like preparing for the worst. They're like almost like, it seems like they're telling the planet that some bad shit's happening. We better start getting ready. So it's like the actual weapons are getting like prepped is kind of what I'm gauging. Also, a crazy visual thing I'd like to throw out that we keep talking about. We have to get to the top to give the black materia to Sephiroth, right? Because he has to summon Meteor. I'm fairly sure that's going to happen. But there's kind of a weird thing that happens because Sephiroth has the black materia when they get to City of the Ancients, or the Forgotten Capital. There's a big CG cutscene where Sephiroth like calls the goddamn eternity to like collide, right? Where he calls the realities to collide. But before that, he summons Meteor, bro. Like he calls Meteor from the fucking sky. And similar to Remake Part 1, this isn't a vision. Like this is like seemingly happening. He calls Meteor and he takes the energy of it and it absorbs into him, and it absorbs into his wing or some shit. So it's like, I went back and I looked at it and it sort of like glazes you over because so much shit is happening. I'm like, wait a minute, did Sephiroth just summon Meteor? And then he harnessed its power? Like, what the fuck is going on here? So I don't know what they're setting up for, dude. Like, it's a very similar scene shot for shot from Remake Part 1. And I don't know if it's supposed to be an illusion or anything, because the characters aren't in some crazy other reality. They're sitting right outside the City of the Ancients before they go in. So I'm like, wait a minute, did he just use the whispers to absorb Meteor? And then that energy translates into the life stream, and the life stream turns black. It turns this weird crusted color. It gets infected by it. So it's like, You think it's an illusion? Chat's saying they think it's an illusion, but we're not in weird illusionscape here. We're not in like a Shinra simulation illusion. Like the characters are all seeing this shit happen, and then he goes to Aerith after. It's like, that's some crazy weird shit though, right? This is this. We're not in a dreamscape here. We're actually at City of the Ancients, and suddenly Meteor shows up, and he just like sucks it up.
Maybe he needs to store that power when he performs Supernova in the next game.
Yeah.
How's he going to do that?
I don't even know what that technically, like, there's already like impressions that we got from Ultimanias in part 1 that weren't very clear, which was what Sephiroth was doing in the end, that he was actually in control of the Whispers. That really technically wasn't communicated to us as the player of these games until the end of this game, where it's like, oh yeah, no, these Whispers are in control of Sephiroth. These are his Whispers. We don't know what the White Whispers are, but we knew that from like the devs in some sort of book at some point where they're like, oh yeah, it was like a recap that Sephiroth is now in control of Destiny Whispers. We're like, what the fuck? Didn't know that. That's
so. Are the black and white Whispers tied to the black and white materia?
They have to be, right? There has to be some sort of connection there. Because he sends the black Whispers, which are in control of him, to go find the black materia. He has like the key, and he activates it, and it opens up a portal, and all the Whispers come through, and the materia manifests in his hands. It's the actual black materia. So I'm like, this is definitely connected to like white materia, black materia shit in some way. The white materia is clearly like something from Aerith, like Omni Aerith, maybe. They're clearly working for her in some way. They're preserving some element of Destiny, but at the same time, I can absolutely confirm that none of us have the info, bro. That your friend Jack Showmo does not have the information. Your dad that works at Square Enix also doesn't have the information. The goddamn localizers
isn't written yet.
The poor localizers from Remake Part 1 didn't even have the information. They also had to go back to Part 1 and change the ending line because the ending line was meant to be taken literally and not subjectively. So they had to fix it. And now she has a different line at the end of Remake. They patched that in to accompany the freak shit in the sky.
Yeah.
They had to take that line out because no, she's actually talking about the freaky fucking thing in the sky, brother. Yeah. So again, it's like nobody knows. Nojima himself might not even know yet. They might be like listening to this shit and changing story bits. We don't know. All I got to say is that like, I love not knowing. I love that we're in
it's gonna be fun.
Dude, I at the end of this game, I was in a spot where I was like, dude, I don't feel like there's any mystery anymore. I feel like we kind of got confirmation that like the timeline shit is happening and our party's just going up there to do this stuff and some weird shit's gonna happen. I kind of felt that way. I was like, you know what? There's no theorizing here. This was like the first couple of hours. There's really nothing here to bite into because as the events are presented to you on screen and you translate them, you're like, okay, yeah, so that's what's going on. We got Force Ghost Aerith. She might be alive in some other timeline. The game wants us to think that is what they are seemingly setting up. But similar to Part 1, I feel like they sprinkle shit all over the place that now leads to even more absolute crazy schemy bullshit that like, oh, now they know people went crazy schemy bullshit with the first game, and some of us were right.
Mess with them.
Yeah, again, the timeline thing was not given to us on a plate. We did not have confirmation of any of this timeline shit until Sephiroth is traveling with us through dimensions and goes, Cloud, I'm going to break this down for you piece by piece now. And that was 120 hours into Rebirth. They gave us that information finally, dude. So anyway, I don't think we're going to get confirmation of any of this shit until like the end of the next game. I think it's going to take a very long time for us to even get there. They're going to tease it. They're going to hint it. But we, as like FF7 Remake fans and people that got into this, we sort of take for granted that like this timeline stuff isn't confirmed yet, right? Like, we don't know. We don't know what the hell's going on. This could have been Shinra propaganda.
Final game is over.
Zack could have been alive with our characters in the same Midgar. Like he could just been back at Midgar. There could have been one timeline. We don't know. We literally did not get that information until 120 hours.
The sky is crazy, and they're like, "What? What are you talking about?"
The sky is crazy. The stamp logo is the seasonal thing that changes every season, and so
and then the stamp thing is there just for us as fans to start making connections that, like, oh, this is a different one. This is a different one. This is a different one. That's a different one. You know. So as they're definitely cooking some wild shit here, and I feel like in part 3, we're definitely going to have a similar thing to part 2, where we're going to carry on our party and do very similar situations. But I'm really curious what's happening with the Black Materia and Cloud, and how Cloud's breakdown is going to be worse than it ever. It's going to be so dark, dude. I really feel like the next game is going to be hella dark, but there's a good reason. In my opinion, there's a great reason for all of this. The most triumphant moment of Final Fantasy VII OG isn't when like you beat weapons and stuff like that. The best moment of the FF7 OG is when Cloud realizes who he really is, and he wakes the fuck up. And he's like, guys, let's go do this shit. I'm back. Like, I have not been that person this whole time. Dude, it's so good. And they're setting up that moment to be the most fucking triumphant moment. Like the Let's Mosey shit. All this timeline shit is setting up for the Let's Mosey moment to be so fucking cool. Where like, and then the ship breaks off. Let's go. Like type of like, God damn, I can't wait, dude. That's gonna be so amazing.
Especially if Cloud, it gets so dark, like you think,
down this rabbit hole, and
we really have to bring him back.
I don't feel like I'm pitching something that crazy here. They're really setting up Cloud to fail so hard. Barrett literally says it, man. Where he's like, "We have everything riding on you here."
Man, would they go so
Are you
far
okay?
As to
and
kill him?
He says literally, "Yeah, I'm fine, bro." He's like not even taking it seriously. It's like, oh, dude, our party's about to be so disappointed in this guy. We're about to be, and Tifa looks so sad in the end and shit. It's like, eesh, man, this seems like a really happy ending for our next adventure. On first watch, I don't think it's that. I think this is a setup for disaster.
Watch, man, they'll kill Cloud. He'll have a death scene. Zack will reappear, and Cloud will hand a Buster Sword to Zack. We'll have a reverse of that scene and really mess with us.
I don't know if I would do that, but
they're not going to do that. Yeah. But I do want to. You've been alluding to it. I do want to talk about some expectations for part 3.
Yeah.
If you're cool with that, I want to know where you think how and where is it going to start on part 3? Oh, so we were so convinced Calm was going to be part 2.
For sure.
Yeah. Where are we going here?
So I'm going to say it. I don't know. You know why I don't know? Because this game's leading to something that doesn't make any sense. We have a flying airship at the end of this. The Tiny Bronco flies now. That didn't happen in the OG, outside of the first scene when it dies. Now the Tiny Bronco is flying, we get access to the world. It's like there's a big thing where it's like the most comedic part of FF7, tragedy to comedy, is that, bro, our best friend just died. Like my girlfriend just died. Let's go snowboarding.
Yeah, the plane's gonna break down again and over the mountains, and they're gonna have to snowboard out.
Is that where we think it's gonna go? I actually don't know where they're going with that. Like how and what the next game is going to start off with, because Calm made the most sense. Getting the backstory of the Sephiroth Nibelheim backstory made the most sense. Now I really don't know, dude.
What if we start as Omni Aerith?
Well, yes.
Start as Omni Aerith.
More OP Aerith shit. Yes,
different timeline shit.
Like, give us. I want to have some like crazy. I want to be completely in depth. They can't have Cloud be insane Dark Knight Cloud forever, though. That has to end eventually, because that's really depressing. If like the whole party can't trust this guy, especially at the end of this game, he needs to come back around in some way, but also being corrupted by this shit. So I don't know. I actually don't know where the next game is going to go from this point. We're clearly in they proposed the idea. We're following you, Cloud. We're going to the north, right? He's like, yes, we're going to the north. Aerith, you do your prayer. Let's go. So they're going to be following Cloud's direction in some way, but I really don't know, man. This one doesn't make any sense to me.
I could see it. I mean, I thought this too. I saw it mentioned in chat by a few people. Like, we go to Rocket Town first, because maybe Sid wants to make it a little more fine tuning to the Tiny Bronco. He's like, hey, I got it running, but let's stop here, because I gotta take care of a few upgrades, and then we can get moving again. And we get a little bit of like a Sid deep dive, and kind of like start a little slower.
I will say the thing that I do presume them doing is that instead of having a 2-tier airship, which is what we have in the OG game, you get like the propeller plane, and then you get the jet plane after. We're going to have a 3-tier airship. We're going to have one that is clearly like Sid's Tiny Bronco, but it can only go so far, similar to the water Tiny Bronco in Rebirth, right? But it can't go through like crazy weather. There's going to be some nutty ass weather and shit that just they'll prevent this ship from going there. So we got to land and huff it on foot type shit, right? But then we're going to get our next tier airship. And then after that, after the big triumph, we're going to get our jet airship. So I think air travel and how airships work is going to be a massive part of the next game, introduced at the very beginning. It isn't going to be a thing that shows up down the line. It's like introduced right at the start with Sid. We're going to be pilot wingsing this shit around.
Yeah.
Because we'd be at that point like 200 hours into this game, so that makes sense.
Yeah, and also I don't think they're going to admit this. I think we're also probably going to get the ocean. I think we're going to get the submarine.
Oh,
and
I
have
think so too.
I think they hint at the under the ocean part with the Tifa scene a lot. Where it's like, oh yeah, we're gonna be able to submerge and go around all this shit and fight stuff and discover things down here. That'll be super sick.
Are we gonna get another intermission, perhaps, possibly with Vincent?
Said they weren't gonna
so
do it.
We are not, and I really wish that wasn't the case, man.
Yeah,
because if there's
so awesome.
If there's a DLC I wish we had, it was a goddamn Vincent DLC right now.
Yeah, that would have been really good.
They pretty much said that we're working on part 3. I think they want part 3 to come out even faster than part 2 did.
Yes.
So, and you have to realize how much of a miracle this game is. I'm going to set these things up. This is one of the most content-rich games you can buy this generation, straight up. It 100%. Has, and the quality to time of content is also insurmountably high. It's impossible to think a game like this can be made in less than 4 years, number one. Also, during a pandemic. This game was made during the pandemic. Their entire workflow was altered in some way. To help them with the next game, so much of this game sets up and builds the world, right? Now we just need to expand this world. And if you want to talk about things I think they can improve on, actual criticisms of Rebirth, I think we're going to have a similar situation to like Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, where we get an expanded world with more stuff you can do in it type of stuff. I think it's going to be a similar. It feels like a sequel to this game, like an actual like, oh, this is another Rebirth with more stuff now. I think that's going to happen. There's one thing I think they should change. I think we need a jump button. I think we need a jump button on the characters, and the weird contextual world interaction stuff kind of needs to go away. Ladders and stuff like that are fine. I get you. But like the way chocobos run across some environments and shit, and the way like your player runs across the environments is kind of clunky. So if there's one thing I hope they fix with like the way the world functions in contact with the player, I'd appreciate that. I think that's something that definitely can be fixed. Did it ruin this game for me in any way? Would I hold it against this game in any way, like review-wise? Not at all. Not at all. I never really thought about it. But it is something that can be improved.
I kept trying to
sometimes moving through the map was
like in 16, because like you could jump with the chocobo and glide. I'm like, I can't do this in Rebirth. Why? Like you
get adapted to it very fast. Like your brain goes like, okay, and you sort of like wrap your head around it. But the weird, funky contextual jumping and mounting and stuff is a little odd. And it'd be nice if there was just a jump button. It would make a lot more sense for the next game. Like the FF14 is almost like a good example of that, or even Elden Ring and the way they handle weird environmental shit in their world. I feel like there's room to improve there.
Heber, you were saying, sorry.
Oh no! Just moving through the map sometimes was challenging.
It's cumbersome.
Just cumbersome is a better word. Yeah.
How much we know what's left in OG Final Fantasy VII that they haven't covered, but a lot of it is technically optional stuff. How much of that do you expect? We don't have to be specific, but do you expect a lot of that optional stuff to be made mandatory or worked into the actual core of the game?
I think this game told us exactly what they're doing with the proto relic in the next game. So, I mean, the next game's proto relic quest is pretty obvious what that shit's going to be about. It's you hunting down the 13 knights.
Hell yeah, dude! Knights of the Round, let's go.
The Knights of the Round materia potentially harness
cutscene or thumbs down, dude.
The Knights of the Round built into the story of the game, which is as we saw from this, the Cetra went to war back in the day. We found out the Temple of the Ancients isn't a temple; it was a fortress to fight against the warring humans at the time, the literal Knights of the Round type of shit that fought them. And the only reason they fought them was under Genova's manipulation, like literally pitted humans against the Cetra type shit. So I think that's going to definitely build into the story. In the same way they expanded the Gi and the Cave of the Gi, I think that's going to not just be like a VR thing. No. I think Knights of the Round is going to be integral to like, this was like a weapon we used against the Cetra or like a weapon we used against Genova type of shit. And we now need to use it against Sephiroth.
It better be when you use that shit, dude. It better be the single most expensive, high budget cinematic in the history of video games, dude.
It's gonna be nuts.
Yeah, our budget, we had to spend an extra like 30 million just on Knights of the Round.
I'm also gonna throw out this idea. This game promotes the idea of costumes for characters, right?
Oh,
it does.
Heck yeah.
So I would like to pitch the idea for part 3 that I again think we're going to see Advent Children. I also pitched the idea 4 years ago that I think we're going to relive and play through events of fucking Advent Children at some point. I think we're going to actually like see our characters from that future reality. So I think it would be really neat if we got those characters' costumes.
Yes, please.
Like it would be insanely cool.
Yeah,
I would. I don't know if it's going to happen. That would make me so happy.
I'm not going to invoke his name because I do it every chance I get, but I need the Kingdom Hearts costumes, dude.
Kingdom Hearts Cloud costumes pretty dope.
Taped Buster Sword, dude. I'm begging, man. I'm begging
to Disney. You have to go to Disney.
Oh my god.
It's the problem with all this stuff.
Just give me that.
Dude, if Cloud and Sephiroth didn't get their Kingdom Hearts outfits in Smash Brothers, I don't know if there's much hope here, dude.
That's true.
To be real, that shit is a legal fucking nightmare.
We didn't get like Advent Children amiibo, right? We got regular Soldier Cloud.
They did. No, we got Advent Children Cloud in Smash. That's the one I play as.
But we're never gonna get. But they did put Sora in Smash, so
they did. We never got the other shit.
They ran out of budget. Sakurai got tired.
That's what I'm saying. If they couldn't even get that for the Final Fantasy characters, and again, Kingdom Hearts has distanced itself from Final Fantasy almost intentionally. So I don't know if that's happening.
We'll have to see. Do you think it was? People were hoping it was going to be in Rebirth. It does not appear in Rebirth. Tankceratops or Triceratops tank or whatever.
So he's in this game, and he might be disappointing to some. They turned him just into a dinosaur. Apparently, the name, there's like a Japanese character that you fight in Gongaga that is Tankceratops. But it isn't the same OG goofy design. It has the same name as it was in the Japanese version of some shit. But it's one of the notorious monster fights. You actually fight him here. And there's like a bigger one that shows up in the Battle Coliseum that is technically Tankceratops, which is a little disappointing because it is just a monster. It isn't like a weird robot Triceratops. It has a different name in our version. Okay. Apparently in like the Japanese version, it shares the same name as Tankceratops in the Japanese FF7 is what I heard.
Is this like a Test Zero situation,
kinda.
I could still believe maybe they'll make it a reality in part 3. I really thought during the Scotch and Koch part it was gonna be one of the phases. They're gonna bust it out again. I was like, well, that's where Hell House came out. So
that would have been
that would have been great.
But, was there any really big like enemy reveals in this game?
Well, for me, it was Test Zero.
Yeah, Test Zero was an insane deep cut reference. To me, one of the best enemy reveals in this game was the Vincent boss fight.
Oh my gosh.
Fighting Galean Beast. I was like, what the fuck is happening here? Dude, this is crazy. I loved it. I thought that was so cool.
Oh yeah, some shout outs to Kid G. Yeah.
Kid G getting a story, like Final Fantasy VII Sonic the Hedgehog getting a story was very interesting.
Let's see. We talked about the optional content would be included. You already mentioned you think we're gonna like play or see Advent Children, like other
I think so.
Other compilation stuff. Like obviously, probably it's likely it could pop up, like for sure.
Yeah.
Like everything's fair game.
I think that we're getting into the final game. We know it's the final game. We know this game's series is supposed to encompass all of the compilation of Final Fantasy VII and the original Final Fantasy VII. They told us that at the beginning of Advent Children in the theaters. I think they're bringing it around. There's so many Advent Children references in this game, dude. Like there's so even the part where Cloud and Aerith are sitting there back to back after fighting Sephiroth is literally the shot for shot of Cloud and Aerith sitting back to back in Advent Children and shit before she disappears. It's like Yeah,
And it's so calculated the way they came out with Crisis Core Reunion in 2022 or 2023, whenever that was. They re-released Advent Children. They're like, hey, here it is. Like they wouldn't, again, everything they've done with 7 Remake has been so purposeful.
So you want my level 10 where this is going? And it ties to what Cloud's staring at the very end of the game. We don't know what the hell it is, which is like the empty white materia, which Aerith specifically gives to Cloud, the clear materia, which has no memories in it yet. I think that thing is going to get filled up because they tell us several times throughout this game, materia is like memories and experiences put into orbs. And that's why Aerith depletes, because it's removed from her. So Cloud gets an empty one, because what is Cloud now? Well, he doesn't really have anything. He has nothing yet. So eventually, that is going to be like the weapon that Aerith gives Cloud for an eventual conflict when he needs to fight, when he actually needs to fight Sephiroth. I think that. So what is the white materia again to our characters? Seemingly a perception of the future. Like, it's Omni Aerith memories. It's Aerith that understands everything from timeline memories. It's this crazy holy materia, right? I'm like, ooh, that's a little different than before. So what's the black materia? Potentially the memories from all the negative shit across all timelines now, instead of just meteors. Like, ooh, that's scary. I think Cloud's materia is going to be him omni-slashing Sephiroth, memories of him whooping his ass in every single other timeline. It's going to be like the Cloud, I'm about to inject into your ass, you killing this guy every other time you've done it throughout all of history. Fucking go. I think that's what they're setting that up for. That's Cloud's awakening materia. And it isn't just him like, I'm a nerdy 16-year-old kid who's really insecure and kind of a loser. Let's mosey. That reveal's still going to happen. I think there's another reveal for Cloud that, like, dude, you've done this before. You can do it again. Like, I think they're setting up for Cloud to whoop Sephiroth's ass in like a really sick ass way, and that also will include Zack in some way. So
we don't need
to Paladin Cloud shit is what I'm hinting at.
We don't need to spend much time on it, but I've heard a lot of people. Okay, I disagree, but a lot of people have been like, "Yo, Remake Part 3 is actually going to be Final Fantasy 17."
No,
it's not.
No. Yep. No. Okay.
Not at all.
Had to get that out there. I've seen that a lot. A lot of people.
It's just a meme.
That's memey. Yeah. The next game's already in development, and what do you guys think it's going to be called?
Oh yeah, that was the question I was going to ask.
Final Fantasy VII Retcon.
Yeah. What I'm trying to remember what the hell I thought it was. It might not have. No, I think what it is. Sephiroth uses the term claim. I want to claim this. I'm going to claim all of these things. I'm going to take back what's mine and claim it. I think it's going to be called like reclaim or reunite. He also talks about uniting all of these universes together and shit. However, that doesn't make sense because he's already done that. The reunion is the reuniting of timelines, and that happens at the end of this game.
And
so usually
called reunion.
You can't use reunion. It's already been used.
Yeah.
Usually the descriptor of the games is what Sephiroth is doing. They are. Sephiroth is remaking the timeline. What was Sephiroth's goal in part 1? To essentially use... Oh, this is another tidbit. Sephiroth's goal in Remake Part 1 is to use the Fate Ghosts to remove Aerith's memories, to essentially make the white materia useless. And he does that, which is why he's mega pissed off when she just like brings it from another timeline. So Sephiroth is like remaking time. He's remaking, Final Fantasy VII. Part 2 is the rebirth, right? Essentially the rebirth of an entire new timeline. These are all Sephiroth intentions. So I'm like... The final one is the last thing that Sephiroth wants to do, which is much grander in scale than I think just calling Meteor and damaging the planet. Like, we've already confirmed he wants to control friggin' infinity, and he wants to control all of existence, not just this planet.
Does it have to be a word that starts with R?
Oh, yeah. It has to start with R-E.
It has to be, right?
It has to start with R-E. It does. So... I don't know, man. I think reunite could also be it too. I don't know. It could be a lot of things.
Yeah, I feel like I've done this before. Because reunion would have been so perfect, but they obviously already used it. And then reunite does like thematically make sense. I had like redemption.
Red Dead Redemption.
But people don't like that.
Maybe redemption is related to Sephiroth coming around and helping the party in some way, but he has to be a bad guy. He can't be redeemed. Sephiroth is fucking irredeemable, bro.
300 words that start with re.
I know.
It's like,
you just gotta scan them all and be like, all right, which one's it gonna be?
Yeah, I mean, the meme one was revengeance, because like I said that during my stream. I was like, and then I saw some people in chat say it again. I was like, yeah, revengeance. It's like, they just go there. They're going. That's like they've committed to going off the rails, like level 20 off the rails. We're just buckle up, buckle up. Here we go. Like every slash of Sephiroth's sword, we go to a different reality in the final fight. PS6 hardware needed for all those loading.
So I'm very impressed that the devs were able to get me as excited for the next game as I was for the end of Remake going into Rebirth. I on first glance, I wasn't super excited, and I was kind of only okay with what's going on, and like it's one of those introspective sort of endings with a lot of retrospect, and you have to check out the whole game as a compendium, and it starts changing, and you're like, whoa, I think they're setting up for way more than we think they are. I don't think this is just about the black materia and summoning Sephiroth. There's way more shit going on here, man.
I think it's so cool when a game comes out or a sequel and it makes you completely re-examine the one that came before it, or when you go back and you go through Remake 1 now, or even the original, you're going to see it so differently.
The last thing I got to mention before we go, if this is the end, we might have some more things to talk about. There's a wild NPC in Cosmo Canyon. Have you seen it, Mike?
Which
the timeline NPC in Cosmo Canyon around the little powwow meeting.
I haven't done it since my first playthrough, so I might have, and I just don't remember.
It's very easily missable. It's super missable. It is a character that is in the little round table that like Tifa is in, like the powwow, and you have to like wait a while. And one character starts talking about like characters being like dead and lost, but them potentially living in other realities, and maybe we can communicate. I don't remember
what he said though.
It's a girl, and she goes deep into like the lore of what the timelines are and the existence beyond it and what the live stream is. But then she says it's like just a theory, and I've heard about it, but I don't know if it's real or not. So it's like, these are the devs fucking with us, dude. Like this is the dev lore dump hidden in Cosmo Canyon.
That's good. I don't remember that one, but that's that's fully what I expect from the devs, is to throw out stuff that you don't know if it's a red herring or it's true, but they're like, you're gonna doubt it till it happens. Like
she talks about like her parents dying here but being alive in another world type of stuff. It's like, whoa, okay.
Pretty cool. Yeah. I'm sure they are going to have a lot of fun with us before we reach the end.
My god, the trailer is going to be insane.
Yeah, now I almost don't
now I'm anticipating the trailer in the same way I was anticipating the trailer for Rebirth, where it's like, is the timeline shit going to be there? What's happening, dude?
I just want someone whenever they drop a trailer for the next one, I just want someone to edit out just the title card at the end so I can see the title and we're good. I don't want to see anything else.
You don't want to see anything else?
Just tell me the title, baby.
I'm gonna be way too anxious to know. I'm gonna be so anxious to know. So when can you all expect that? Well, there's a pretty significant Final Fantasy VII date in the not so near future, and that is 2027. It's the 30th anniversary of Final Fantasy VII. So similar to like this game, we got during the 25th anniversary, there's a big event and show, that was like showing and talking about Rebirth for the first time. I think in 2027, we're going to get either big reveals or an actual release in some way. And I don't think part 3 is, depending on how development goes, shit changes all the time. I think that's their goal. I think their goal is to have like 30th anniversary FF7. We completed the FF7 remake trilogy.
Yeah, I think that's a good timeline.
Too perfect.
I think, I think next we already have like 16 DLC. We have the 14 expansion this year, like just in the realm of Final Fantasy and like their first party offerings, their AAA stuff. That's pretty much got this year covered. Next, would feel very confident in saying that I feel like Kingdom Hearts 4 will be out by the end of next year. I feel like they're not going to take too long on that development. So that'd be like the big 2025 title from them. And I don't think you're going to get like another mainline there. And that's too soon. 2026, end of 2026 is probably like the earliest you'd see part 3. But you're right. having it align with the 30th anniversary would be like a pretty big milestone. So I would imagine sometime, like I'm going to say Summer Game Fest 2026, we'll get our first like look at,
I think Jeff will get
yeah,
will get top dibs at it again.
Yeah.
Because, he got it for Rebirth. Yeah. I think that could definitely happen.
And we still got, I don't think Final Fantasy, I'll be honest, I don't think Final Fantasy 17 is happening till after part 3 of Rebirth, or the remake trilogy at this rate. Like, I'll just throw that out there.
Dude, Dragon Quest 12 was announced
they're just
freaking long
well,
ago.
that's just waiting they're just waiting for Switch's successor. They can't show it off till that because it's obviously on that platform, and they don't want to talk about it till it comes out on that. So
you know what we get to be excited about and anticipate when it's FF7 related. The PC version.
Oh gosh, yes.
Yeah,
I can't wait, dude. I want the PC version of this game so bad. Like I played a fan modded version of Remake before this, and somebody modded in 4K textures into the whole game.
Ooh.
It added like 50 gigs to the game, and it made me realize like why there's so many things that might not look great upon close inspection in Rebirth. Because dude, if you increase the texture quality on everything in Rebirth, the game would be like 300 gigs, bro. Like Square Enix,
discs.
you the only people that have that kind of pull is like Activision to convince Sony, like, hey, we can make it bigger, right? And like, well, whatever, okay. Like Square might not even have that kind of pull to be like, we want to release a game that requires you to buy an extra NVMe. Like, what the hell, dude? It would be so huge.
Yeah, that for sure. There's already an issue with 14. They've been redoing the textures. They have a big graphical update, and they're like, yeah, it's been a difficult job of like balancing how much we can do and how fast, because the game is already so damn huge. So something that has to also be like on consoles as well. Like that's like 14 is too. It's like that's insane. So yeah, I imagine the PC version will allow you if you have those resources. I can't wait for Rebirth to come out on PC and like potentially get closer to 60 frames with like, actual 4K. It'd be nice. The last question I have, we saw some reports, and it wasn't actually confirmed that the last one would be like have the same exclusivity as part 1 and part 2. I mean, are you pretty much convinced that part 3 is going to be a Sony exclusive as well and have like the same format?
I'm convinced Sony scooped up the entirety of the remake series. It was shown at a Sony event. It's already like talked about that, like, oh yeah, Sony has this one for a limited period of time. 1000% in my personal opinion, that the next game is like a PS6 or PS5 to PS6 game, because we're going to be right around that time. We're at the end of the PlayStation 5 lifecycle. Mm-hmm. So, because we're already more than halfway done, just to throw that out. Like Sony has already said that, like we're already halfway done through the life cycle of the PS5. It's like, whoa, I guess that happened. Like, holy shit, he's actually right. Goddamn.
Yeah, we might be able to check out Rebirth.
The box set of all 3 of these games together when that comes out is gonna be so
We'll save that for
sick.
part 3 spoiler mode about whether they'll go back and redo part 1 and part 2 to make like a seamless game or something.
Like like a Bigum version,
like the recollection. Everyone keeps calling it Final Fantasy VII Recollection or something.
To be completely honest, it's going to be really hard to go to remake after Rebirth, especially considering how improved the combat is. I can't even imagine playing characters that can't jump and move around anymore. Like not getting Air Dash Cloud, I'm like, that sounds painful to me now.
Yeah,
I do hope part 3 has more linear sections like part 1, and like Temple of the Ancients was very like, yo, you're locked into this.
Yes, I think it will.
Yeah,
because there's more story. To be real, there's an issue that Rebirth has in general with its story, and it's just point A to point B to point C. Most of it is that, and then there's like little sprinklings of plot here and there. That's an FF7 problem. FF7 problem is a globe-trotting adventure until it gets to the Northern Crater, and there's the story, right? Yeah. The story kicks in. So where is the next game kicking off for us? Well, big story is about to be going down. So I think, the next game's gonna have a lot more like mega plot relevant shit.
Well, we just hit the about to hit the 4-hour mark here.
No, how? Oh my god, this is going to be impossible to digest for anybody. I'm sorry. How long was the old one we did back in like 2020?
Not 4 hours.
Oh shit, bro.
I don't think so.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Well, it didn't feel like 4 hours. I'll say that.
Not apologize. It's never long enough.
but
Chat's appetite is insatiable.
yeah, they probably want us to go for like another 4. There's
No,
definitely stuff
my voice.
Yeah. But yes, yeah, we got to let Max go. And thank you so much for joining us, Max.
No problem.
Yeah, are you going to be playing any more Rebirth? You're going to be, and obviously be doing more Rebirth videos. What do you got coming up?
I very aggressively want to play more. I'm currently like 17 parts into my playthrough on YouTube. They're going up in like, 2 to 4 hour chunks each. But my playthrough ended at like 130 hours. So I still got a lot more to go. And yeah, that's going up in 4K and stuff. So I'm trying to get the best high quality footage of that as possible up on YouTube at the same time, since I already am done streaming it. But yeah, I really want to go through like hard mode. I want to play hard mode at 60 FPS. I played the game at 30 FPS. So I want to try like a different mode. And the 60 FPS update was pretty good. It actually made the game look a little bit better. So I kind of want to check that out and just see what that's like and have some, nicer gameplay fidelity to it all. But yeah, I really want to go through hard mode. I'm looking forward to it.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm very curious to see what you think about it. If you think it as hard as I thought it was, but some people, they handle.
I've heard it's difficult as shit.
We'll see. Oh yeah, and Huber, yeah, thanks for joining us as well.
Dude,
I know you had a blast with it,
man.
No problem.
And yeah, thank you everyone in chat for hanging around. Like showing us that support and coming out and supporting Max like this. We had a ton of viewers, so thank you so much. And yeah, and again. Support us at Easy Allies. You can always head over to patreon.com/Easy Allies if you want to support us, or just in any way you want to support us. We are very appreciative for that. But that's going to do it. We're done. We'll see you in 3 years.
We'll see you in a few years, guys.
See you in a few years for the reunion.
Yeah.
Take it easy, everyone. And yeah, enjoy the rest of your week. Take it easy and enjoy Rebirth if you haven't finished it, which you should have. Bye.